There is a place on this planet where the seafloor simply falls away, not gradually, not like a slope or a shelf. It drops 11 kilometers straight down into a darkness that has never once been touched by sunlight. And in that darkness, in that cold, under a pressure that would collapse almost anything we have ever built, there are animals living quietly, going about their lives. Hello there, and welcome to Deep Sea Slumber. Tonight we descend, slowly, gently, into the deepest known place on Earth. We follow the water down past where light fails, past where most life thins and disappears, all the way to the floor of the Mariana Trench. And we stay a while. The trench is not what most of us imagine when we try to picture it. We reach for words like hostile, or crushing, or void. But those are our words. Words built from our bodies and our limits. The animals that live there have no such frame. They did not arrive at the trench and survive it. They became themselves inside it. Pressure is not a force they resist. It is simply the texture of the world. Darkness is not an absence they endure. It is the only light they have ever known or needed. What we call extreme, they call ordinary. And that quiet reversal, that gentle correction the trench offers to everything we assume about where life can go, is what tonight is really about. There is something the trench asks of us, if we are willing to listen. It asks us to reconsider what a limit is. We tend to think of the deep ocean as a boundary, a place where life approaches its edge and stops. But the Mariana Trench is not an ending. It is a particular kind of world, patient, still, shaped over millions of years by forces so slow and vast that individual lives inside it seem almost like whispers. And yet those whispers are everywhere. Snailfish hover in the dark. Single-celled organisms build elaborate cathedrals from sediment. Pale shrimp carry pressure-resistant chemistry in every cell of their bodies. Sea cucumbers drift across the soft floor, turning it grain by grain. Life in the deepest water on Earth is not clinging on. It is simply living. Tonight, we will meet some of these animals. We will learn their shapes, their adaptations, the quiet logic of how they move and eat and exist. But we will not rush. This is not a place that rewards rushing. The trench has been here for millions of years. It will wait for us. And so we go slowly, the way the water itself moves down there, in long, cold, unhurried currents that have never felt the pull of wind or tide. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, before we begin, let your body settle into wherever you are. Feel your shoulders, not to move them necessarily, just to notice them. And if they have been carrying something, the day, the hour, the small accumulated weight of being awake, let them soften now, just a little, just enough. Your breath doesn't need to change, only to slow, to find its own pace, the way water finds its level, in and out, unhurried. We are going to descend tonight, you and I, not dramatically, not all at once. The way light fades in the ocean, slowly, in layers, each one a little quieter than the last. 200 meters down, the blue deepens. 500, and the last traces of color disappear. 1,000 meters and the world becomes something else entirely. Dark and cold, and full of a stillness that has its own particular quality. Not empty, not silent, just very, very deep. We are going there, slowly. Let your weight settle into whatever is beneath you. The mattress, the cushion, the floor. Let it hold you the way water holds something that has stopped fighting to stay at the surface. You don't have to float. You can simply sink, gently, comfortably, into rest. The trench is 11 kilometers below the surface of the Pacific Ocean. If you placed Mount Everest inside it, the peak would still be more than a kilometer underwater. It is a place shaped by two tectonic plates pressing against each other over tens of millions of years, one sliding beneath the other, pulling the seafloor down, creating a valley so deep it exists almost outside our ability to hold it as a real thing. And yet, it is real. It is there right now as you lie in the dark, as your breath slows. 11 kilometers below the surface of the sea, a snailfish is moving through cold water. A sea cucumber is passing over soft sediment. Something small and pale is drifting in a current that has not changed direction in 1,000 years. They do not know we are thinking about them. They have no need of our attention. But there is something that happens when we turn our attention toward them anyway. Something that quiets the mind, that loosens the grip of the day, that reminds us how large and patient and strange this planet is, and how small and temporary our worries are by comparison. That is what the trench offers if we let it. That is why we are here. Let's begin. At the greatest depths, strength often looks less like hardness and more like surrender. The fish most closely associated with that idea is the Hadal snailfish. It lives lower than most other vertebrates can manage, in trenches where pressure would crush many familiar bodies into failure. Yet it does not meet that force with armor, spikes, or a reinforced frame. It meets it by being soft. That softness is not weakness in disguise. It is a solution. Snailfish belong to a wider family of fishes found in cold oceans, often with loose skin and reduced scales. And many of them already seem slightly unfinished by shallow water standards. The Hadal forms take that tendency further, until the body looks almost translucent, pale, and faintly gelatinous, as if solidity itself has been edited down to what is strictly necessary. They can appear delicate in photographs, with broad heads, small eyes, thin tails, and skin that seems closer to jelly than to the sleek tension most people associate with fish. Yet this shape is part of how they remain possible. Pressure punishes empty space, brittle surfaces, and rigid differences between inside and outside. A body with fewer hard, crushable structures has less to resist and less to break. In other words, one path into the trench is not to become a fortress, but to become difficult to damage, because there is so little in you that can fail in a sudden way. That is a strange idea. It is also a patient one. Many Hadal snailfish have weakly mineralized bones, soft tissues, and no swim bladder, which is the gas-filled organ many fishes use to control buoyancy. A swim bladder works well in shallower water, but at extreme depth, a gas space becomes a problem because pressure compresses it so intensely. The snailfish leaves that strategy behind. It gives up the familiar convenience of an internal balloon and uses other means to live where gas would become a liability. That choice changes the whole feel of the animal. It is not built around a chamber of air, but around tissues and fluids that remain steady under immense weight. What makes this remarkable is not simply that a fish can survive without a structure common in other fishes, but that life keeps shedding what no longer fits the environment, even when the thing being shed once seemed central. There is another quiet adjustment hidden inside its cells. Hadal snailfish accumulate high concentrations of certain small molecules, including trimethylamine N-oxide, often shortened to TMAO, which helps proteins keep their shape and function under pressure. Pressure can twist the chemistry of life at the molecular level, making enzymes less reliable and cell processes less stable. These compounds act almost like protectors of folding, helping the machinery of the body continue its work in darkness so deep it seems more like geology than habitat. Even at that level, the animal is not resisting force in the way we usually imagine resistance. It is preparing its chemistry to remain calm inside it. The survival of the fish depends not only on fins and muscles, but on tiny molecular arrangements holding their form where the sea is trying constantly to alter them. That makes pressure feel less like an external fact and more like an intimate one. The trench is not only around the snailfish, it is in every protein problem the animal must quietly solve. Its body also contains a great deal of water. That may sound too obvious to matter, since all fish are water-rich, but in Hadal's snailfish, the tissues can seem especially loose and hydrated, with a low-density softness that suits a world where compression is everywhere. Water, unlike gas, is hard to compress. A body that is already close in character to the medium around it has fewer dramatic transitions to defend. And so, the fish becomes, in a sense, more ocean-like in order to live in the ocean's most severe depth. That is the wonder pivot hiding inside its softness. The animal survives the trench by yielding toward the nature of its surroundings, by becoming less separate from the pressure rather than more defended against it. Yet softness alone is not enough. The Hadal snailfish is still a fish, and a fish must move, feed, sense, and reproduce in a place where almost every useful signal is faint. Its muscles are not arranged for speed in the way open water predators are. It is not built for pursuit over long distance. The body tends toward economy, toward short movements, small course changes, and close attention to what lies immediately ahead, on or just above the seafloor. Its fins help it hover and adjust with a kind of modest precision, and its tail can drive brief bursts when needed, though these are not the defining image of the animal. More often, it seems to glide, settle, and drift, just clear of the sediment. That is why the snailfish can appear almost understated, even unfinished, until you understand the terms of its world. Speed is costly. Excess structure is costly. A body that looks slight to us may be exactly weighted to a place where every unnecessary feature has been quietly removed. Its skin often lacks the firm scales that protect many shallower fishes. Some species have tiny embedded spines or reduced scale-like elements, but the Hadal forms are known more for smoothness than armor. There is something almost larval in their appearance, as though they have remained in a more flexible stage while other lineages hardened. Yet this, too, is a mature design. The trench has no interest in our preferences for what an adult fish should look like. Life does not mature toward one ideal. It matures toward whatever works. The face of a Hadal snailfish carries another set of compromises. The eyes are often small, sometimes with limited usefulness in a place beyond sunlight, while the sensory systems associated with touch, vibration, and dissolved chemicals become more important. The fish does not need a clear view of a horizon that does not exist. It needs to detect the near world, the movement of a crustacean, the faint disturbance of sediment, the trace of food in water that has forgotten the sun. That shift in emphasis matters. Perception here is not built around distance. It is built around nearness. When humans imagine mastery, we often imagine broad sight lines, alert scanning, early warning, control from afar. The snailfish suggests another mode of being alive. It lives by tending to what is close enough to touch, close enough to taste in the water, close enough to matter now. There is also a limit hidden in its success. Researchers have suggested that vertebrate life may encounter hard biochemical boundaries at extreme depth, and snailfish seem to live near that edge. TMAO concentration, helpful though it is, cannot rise forever without creating other problems. The fish may represent not only a triumph of adaptation, but a quiet approach to a line beyond which this kind of body can no longer go. So the snailfish is not simply a champion of depth. It is also a sign of where one design begins to run out of room. That gives its presence a certain still dignity. It is living near an answer's edge. For a long time, the deepest fish remained more rumor than certainty. Cameras lowered into trenches caught glimpses. Baited landers brought brief images of pale forms appearing from the dark, moving over the seafloor with surprising calm. Each sighting felt less like discovering a monster than like being admitted for a moment into a room that had been occupied all along. The fish came into view as if it had every right to be there, because it did. Some species associated with Hadal trenches have been described only recently, and the exact taxonomy continues to shift as genetics clarifies relationships. There is a soft uncertainty around deep life of this kind, because the animals are hard to collect intact and hard to observe for long. Depth complicates everything. Even bringing a specimen upward can damage the very tissues that made it suited to the world below. That is an important kind of difficulty. It means the trench keeps some of its truth by refusing easy access. The snailfish is known to us, but never in the simple, complete way familiar animals are known. A little of its life remains in the dark where it belongs. One of the most often discussed Hadal snailfishes is the Mariana snailfish, observed in the Mariana Trench at depths beyond 8,000 meters. Its body is pale, almost pinkish or milky under artificial light, with a wide, somewhat cartoon soft head and a tail that narrows delicately behind it. In another context, that appearance might seem fragile to the point of absurdity. At the bottom of the world, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes fitting, almost inevitable. What makes this fish so memorable is the contrast between where it lives and what it looks like. We expect the deepest vertebrate to resemble a machine, a tank, some compressed instrument of endurance. Instead, it resembles a small drifting thought, a body that seems one hard touch away from harm, though it lives where pressure presses with the weight of mountains. And yet the contradiction is ours, not the fish's. We are the ones who keep confusing toughness with rigidity. There is a behavior scene that appears again and again in trench footage. A lander has settled on the seafloor. Its lights cast a small artificial clearing across the sediment, and in that pale circle, amphipods gather first, quick and numerous, stirred by the scent of bait. The bottom seems almost empty at first glance, then full of minute movement. The particles of the seafloor lie soft and level, except where tiny bodies disturb them. Then, the snailfish arrives. It does not rush in like a hunter from open water. It emerges gradually, entering the edge of the frame as if it had been there all along, just beyond the reach of light. Its body hovers a little above the bottom. The pectoral fins work in small measured motions. The tail gives a subtle wave. There is no waste in it. For a moment, it simply remains near the bait, suspended in a way that seems less like swimming than like deciding. Its head angles downward. The mouth opens and closes with soft precision. It studies the crowd not by staring, but by inhabiting the same few inches of water with great attention. This is a hunter of nearness. That becomes clear almost at once. The amphipods continue their quick gathering, pale and restless against the sediment. The snailfish shifts, glides forward, and with a short movement of the head and jaws takes one. There is no dramatic strike, no explosion of force. Only a measured capture, so economical it can feel almost understated, and then a second later, perhaps another. The scene is quiet enough that it changes the meaning of predation. Hunting here is not spectacle, it is selection. Its mouth and teeth are suited to small prey, especially crustaceans and other invertebrates available on or near the trench floor. The fish does not need to overpower large animals. It feeds on what the deep world offers in abundance, or at least with some regularity, and it does so with a method that fits the low-energy economics of the place. Each movement is proportionate to the meal. That is why the behavior feels so calm. It is calm. Even the fish's posture seems to belong to a different theory of survival. Rather than chasing the world, it lets the world gather into range. Bait draws scavengers. Scavengers draw the fish. The trench, for all its vastness, often works through these condensed moments where energy arrives, settles, and is passed from one body to another. The snailfish enters that exchange without hurry. It does not need the whole plain. It needs this patch of sediment, this faint scent, this living cluster. In a world where food may be scattered and uncertain, precision matters more than grandeur. Watching it, one begins to understand that deep adaptation is often about reducing ambition. The fish is not trying to dominate the trench. It is trying to remain inside its terms. Researchers who have viewed these scenes often note how active snailfish can be at baited landers despite the extreme depth. Their presence suggests not merely survival, but a workable ecology with enough prey to support vertebrate hunters. That matters because a fish at such depth is evidence of a whole food web beneath it, however sparse, however slow. Vertebrates do not persist in absolute emptiness. So the snailfish becomes more than an odd body. It becomes testimony. Its existence says that the trench floor is not a sterile limit, but a living place with gradients of attention, hunger, and response. Small crustaceans feed. Predators find them. Chemistry holds. Tissues function. A fish hovers in black water and remains improbably a fish. There is another detail in the behavior that stays with many people. The snailfish often appears almost untroubled by the camera's light, as though even this intrusion is just another local condition to assess and move within. It glides through illumination without theatrics. The body seems to accept the moment and continue. That composure has its own beauty. It suggests an animal without excess drama, without the visible strain we might expect from life under such force. Of course, strain exists in the design itself, in the long evolutionary shaping of proteins, membranes, bones, and behavior. But the animal's outward manner is quiet. It does not perform difficulty. Perhaps that is part of why the Hadal snailfish lingers in the mind. It unsettles a familiar story we tell about extreme places. We assume the deepest world must belong to the hardest things, the most heavily defended, the the most severe in shape and habit. Instead, one of its signature vertebrates is a small soft fish with delicate skin and a body that seems almost unfinished. And yet, it is not unfinished. It is refined. What looks incomplete to us may be what completion looks like under immense pressure. The trench edits bodies differently. It keeps what remains supple, chemically stable, and energetically modest. It loosens what would become a burden. It softens what does not need to be hard. That is a profound reversal. It asks us to consider that under enough force, the winning strategy may not be to become more rigid, but less breakable through flexibility. There is a broader meaning in that. Not a neat lesson, only a pattern worth resting beside. At shallow depth, firmness can be useful. Structure can advertise strength, hold shape, store energy, resist abrasion. But in the Hadal zone, force is so constant and so complete that resistance by stiffness begins to fail as an idea. The better answer may be incorporation, accommodation, a body so fluid in its design that pressure has fewer points of leverage. To survive beneath crushing weight, the snailfish becomes gentle with matter. In other words, the deepest fish is not a small submarine. It is a soft agreement with physics. That agreement does not make the animal passive. It is still choosing, feeding, finding mates, producing young, and meeting the demands of a difficult habitat through long inherited precision. But its precision is quiet. The body does not shout its success. It barely seems to announce itself at all. This gives the snailfish a special place in the trench's story. It is the first clear sign that Hadal life cannot be understood through ordinary images of toughness. The trench does not simply reward force. It rewards fit. Sometimes the best fit is a body that yields without collapsing, a chemistry that stabilizes what pressure would distort, a way of moving that spends little and notices much. That is why the snailfish feels like a threshold animal. Once you understand it, the Mariana Trench begins to change in the mind. The depth stops looking like a place where only the brutal could remain. It becomes a place where tenderness, properly made, can survive almost anything. There is something deeply quiet in that idea. A fish of the deepest trench hovers over fine sediment, pale in a lander's borrowed light. Around it, amphipods gather and scatter. Beneath it, the earth folds and presses. Inside it, proteins hold their shape through chemical care. The whole animal is an answer to weight, but not the answer we would have guessed. It survives by being less solid. It survives. And once that is seen, other trench creatures begin to seem possible too, each in their own patient way, each carrying some version of the same old question. What can life become when the world asks everything of it without ever raising its voice? Not all who live below answer with softness, but the snailfish has shown that softness belongs here. Far above, what falls through the water does not fall into emptiness. It descends into waiting mouths, patient chemistries, and small pale bodies already adapted to receive it. And where one body finds a way to endure, many smaller lives gather around the same patient opportunity. The water is colder here. Not colder in any way a hand could measure easily, but colder in the logic of a world that keeps descending, where warmth from the surface has long since been left behind, and what remains is stable, dark, and slow. In that steadiness, the trench floor receives a constant arrival. It is not a storm of food, it is a dusting. Marine scientists often call it marine snow. The name is gentle, and it fits. Tiny fragments of dead plankton, fecal pellets, broken scales, mucus, shed cells, loosened bits of algae, and the remains of animals from waters far above begin to sink through the ocean in a patient downward drift. Some pieces are almost too small to see. Some gather into clumps. All of it falls. It falls for days, sometimes for weeks, depending on where it began and how fast it sinks. And by the time it reaches Hadal depths, it has already been eaten, broken apart, repackaged, and changed many times over by life on the way down. What arrives is not the fresh shape of a surface world. It is its remainder. Yet that remainder is enough. What makes this important is not only that food reaches the trench. It is that the trench does not make its own abundance in the way a sunlit place does. No green leaves grow here. No bloom opens in the dark. The deepest animals live on what the rest of the planet releases, loses, sheds, or leaves behind. And that means even the most distant seafloor is still part of a conversation with the light. Isolation in the ocean is almost never complete. Among the creatures that answer this slow rain most efficiently are amphipods, small crustaceans shaped a little like compressed shrimp, though often curled more tightly and built for a life of scavenging, gripping, and quick reaction. Many Hadal amphipods are pale. Some are nearly transparent. Some have a faint milky or ghost-like look, as though color itself has become unnecessary. In perpetual dark, it mostly has. Their bodies are jointed and practical. They belong to a large group of crustaceans found in many marine habitats, from shallow beaches to polar seas to great depth. But in the trench, some species reach remarkable abundance. Baited cameras lowered into Hadal waters often record amphipods arriving in numbers that seem, at first, almost surprising for such an austere place. The sediment can appear empty, and then it begins to move. They are there because they can afford to be first. An amphipod does not need to overpower large prey or defend a fixed hunting territory. It needs to detect opportunity, reach it quickly, and make use of whatever the dark provides before it is gone. That is a different kind of success. It favors sensitivity, flexibility, and a willingness to eat what other forms of life leave behind. Scavenging can sound secondary to us. Yet, in ecosystems, scavengers are often among the most essential workers, because death does not end the story of a body. It redistributes it. A fish that dies near the surface may feed midwater animals, then microbes, then drifting crustaceans, and, in the deepest places, the last quiet fractions may still nourish a life waiting on the bottom. Nothing truly disappears quickly in the sea. It changes owners. That is one of the trench's strangest comforts. Even here, at a depth that seems beyond ordinary connection, life is fed by continuity. The amphipod lives at the end of long chains of transfer, where sunlight has been translated into tissue, tissue into fragments, and fragments into a fine descending economy. What reaches the trench is not just food. It is history in pieces. Some Hadal amphipods are only a few centimeters long. Others are larger than many people expect, especially when seen beside bait on a lander camera, where their pale bodies gather and overlap until the seafloor looks briefly animated by a loose, restless carpet of limbs and curved backs. Their size depends on species, habitat, and the amount of food available. But even the larger ones retain the same basic truth. They are small enough to exploit what falls. Smallness matters here. A large animal needs a larger and less reliable meal. A small animal can live from fragments, and fragments are what the trench receives most steadily. That is why abundance at depth often belongs not to the grand or the fierce, but to bodies modest enough to be sustained by the world's leftovers. Scale itself becomes an adaptation. Their anatomy is suited to contact with the bottom. Many Hadal amphipods have strong antennae for sensing chemical cues in the water and along the sediment, limbs adapted for clinging or scrambling, and mouthparts able to rasp, tear, and handle decaying material. They are not elegant in the ornamental sense. They are elegant in the engineering sense. Each part answers a recurring problem. How do you find food that may be rare, scattered, and already fading? Mostly by being alert to chemistry. A dead animal in the deep sea begins to leak a message. Molecules disperse into the water and sediment, and animals able to read those faint gradients gain time. Amphipods are among the quick readers of this language. They do not need sight to tell them where something edible has begun to become available. Scent becomes geography. That is true in many dark marine habitats, but it feels especially clear here, where the visual world offers so little and chemical information can shape whole movements across the seafloor. A drifting trail, almost nothing to us, may be the nearest thing to a road. The amphipod follows what dissolves. It makes its way by what is leaving another body. That is a quiet kind of intimacy. Pressure, of course, has not relaxed its hold just because a creature is small. At Hadal depths, pressure becomes one of the defining facts of existence, and amphipods, like other trench residents, require bodies and chemistry that can continue functioning where water presses with a force difficult to picture. Cell membranes must keep the right fluidity. Proteins must keep their shape and their usefulness. Nerves, muscles, digestion, reproduction, all must proceed under load. The work happens in molecules. One of the substances often discussed in deep-living animals is trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, a compound that can help stabilize proteins against pressure. In some deep fishes, concentrations rise with depth. Amphipods and other invertebrates have their own biochemical strategies as well, sometimes involving osmolytes and membrane adjustments that keep tissues working in conditions that would disrupt many shallow water forms. The body is not merely resisting pressure, it is composed with it in mind. In other words, the trench is not survived by bravery, it is survived by compatibility. An amphipod does not harden itself into defiance against the deep. It becomes chemically at home there, at least within the range its lineage can manage. That difference matters. Life at great depth is less a struggle against place than a patient remaking by place. And yet the amphipod is not only a creature of chemistry, it is also a creature of appetite. When a larger food fall reaches the trench floor, the response can be swift. A fish carcass, a squid body, any concentrated deposit of flesh may draw amphipods in numbers. They gather, climb over one another, wedge themselves into openings, tear at soft tissue, and feed with a purpose that can make this quiet world seem suddenly crowded. The dark, for a while, becomes busy. But busy is not the same as frantic. There is no drama in the human sense, no performance, no audience, only many small lives recognizing brief abundance and using it before microbes and time carry it elsewhere. The scene can look severe if described bluntly, yet it is also simply honest. In the trench, nothing edible can be wasted for long. Scarcity has made efficiency into a form of calm. Some Hadal amphipods also show a more troubling connection to the upper ocean. Researchers have found pollutants in deep-sea amphipods, including persistent organic contaminants that originated in industrial activity far above and far away. These compounds entered food webs near the surface, moved through animals and particles, and eventually reached even the deepest trenches. The amphipod, while feeding on marine snow and carrion, receives not only nourishment, but residue. The depth did not refuse it. This is one of the more sobering facts about trench life. Remoteness is not protection in any complete sense. The same planetary exchange that carries food downward can also carry our chemical history. A Hadal amphipod becomes evidence that there is almost nowhere on Earth outside the reach of what circulates through water, tissue, and time. And yet, even this fact has another layer. It tells us how connected the ocean truly is. Not ideally connected, not innocently connected, but materially and continuously linked from surface to abyss. What sinks does not stop mattering because it vanishes from sight. The amphipod lives where consequences arrive late and quietly. It receives both the gifts and the after-effects of a world above it. That makes this small crustacean strangely revealing. If you want to know whether the trench is isolated, look at what amphipods contain. They contain the answer in fragments. They contain carbon fixed by sunlit plankton, compounds shaped by industrial chemistry, traces of food webs that unfolded thousands of meters above, and adaptations refined at the pressure below. They are local animals built from planetary traffic. Their reproduction too carries a practical tenderness. Like other amphipods, they do not release their young into an open larval drift the way many marine invertebrates do. Females brood eggs in a pouch formed by plates on the underside of the body, keeping developing young close until they emerge more formed and ready for a benthic life. In a place where conditions are stable, but opportunities may be sparse, this kind of direct care reduces the uncertainty of beginning. The young arrive near the bottom and stay within its logic. That is why Hadal populations can become closely tied to trench systems and specific depth bands. A life that does not drift widely at its start may remain more bound to local conditions and local food delivery. The trench is connected to the world above, yes, but its residents also keep their own neighborhoods. Connection and confinement exist together. What makes this especially interesting is the contrast. The amphipod depends on material from far beyond the trench, yet its family life may remain local, folded close to the seafloor and carried directly on the body of the parent. So even in one small crustacean, the ocean holds two truths at once: vast exchange, intimate nearness. There is a scene, often recorded in deep-sea experiments, that stays with people who watch enough trench footage. A baited lander settles into the sediment after a long descent. For a while, nothing much seems to happen. The camera shows dark water, a patch of seafloor, perhaps a pale object placed there by human hands to attract scavengers. The stillness feels almost complete. Then one small form arrives from the edge of the frame, then another. They do not enter with ceremony. They appear as if the dark had been holding them just beyond sight, waiting for chemistry to become convincing. Their antennae angle forward. Their bodies pivot, pause, advance. Soon the bait is ringed by pale shapes, each one moving in quick, efficient starts. A leg grips, a body folds, mouth parts work. The sea floor begins to resemble weather. More amphipods drift in from the water just above the bottom or scramble across the sediment, and the cluster thickens until individual bodies overlap into a restless mass of feeding crustaceans. They are not coordinated in any social sense. Each follows its own interest. Yet together, they create a pattern that looks almost communal, a temporary city formed around one brief event of abundance. It can happen quickly. At great depth, this speed feels surprising. We imagine the trench as a place where everything takes a very long time, and often it does. Sediment accumulates slowly, bodies may grow slowly, organic matter descends slowly. But recognition can be fast, response can be fast. Slowness in the deep does not mean dullness, it means patience between opportunities. Then the scene changes again. As feeding continues, the bait diminishes. Soft parts are removed first. Openings widen. Fragments break away. Some amphipods leave carrying tiny pieces. Others remain inside cavities or cling to edges. The crowded urgency begins little by little to relax. Numbers thin. Motion spreads out. The temporary weather of bodies starts to settle back into scattered individuals on dark ground. Nothing about it is wasted. By the time a larger scavenger arrives, if one does, much may already have been processed into smaller bits, feces, dissolved compounds, microbial access, and redistributed energy. Amphipods are not merely consumers at such moments. They are accelerators of return. They help move a dead body back into circulation, reducing singular form into shareable matter. That is why abundance around carrion is more than a feeding spectacle. It is one of the mechanisms by which the deep sea remains alive on limited income. The trench cannot afford delay. A meal left unused is a missed transfer in a system built on the long descent of scarce resources. Amphipods meet falling matter with readiness, and readiness at scale becomes ecosystem function. There is another quiet strangeness in their presence. For many listeners, a crustacean in the trench may not seem immediately moving. It lacks the familiar face of a fish or octopus. It does not gaze back. It does not hover gracefully. It twitches, scrapes, feeds, and disappears. Yet sometimes the least charismatic bodies are the clearest teachers, because they show life not as symbol, but as process. The amphipod is process made visible. It reveals that the bottom of the ocean is not cut off from the top, only delayed from it. What falls from a bloom, a death, a molt, a feeding event, a season of surface productivity may become trench nourishment much later and very far away. Time stretches the connection, but it does not break it. The amphipod lives inside that stretched thread, and that changes how the Mariana Trench begins to feel. It is still distant. It is still dark. It is still one of the most physically extreme places on Earth. But it is not outside the world. It is one chamber within a circulating planet, receiving the faint but steady inheritance of waters above. The amphipod waits where that inheritance settles. In a way, these small scavengers turn distance into evidence. Every body on the trench floor that depends on marine snow or carrion is proof that gravity itself helps tie ecosystems together. The ocean does not keep its stories neatly stacked by depth. It lets them drift into one another. Surface light becomes plankton. Plankton becomes flesh. Flesh becomes fragments. Fragments become trench life. The amphipod is one of the creatures that makes the last step visible. That is a profound modesty. Nothing about this animal suggests grandeur. It does not need to. Its meaning comes from participation in a cycle so large that any single body can hold only a tiny portion of it. Yet tiny portions are how ecosystems persist. The trench is sustained by accumulation, by innumerable small transfers, by the fact that enough falls, enough is found, enough is used. Enough is a beautiful word in the deep. Not abundance in the bright overflowing sense, not ease. Just enough arriving often enough for a community of hidden lives to continue. Amphipods gather where enough has settled. They turn scantness into continuity. Their numbers say that the dark floor is receiving what it needs, even if only in fragments. And yet there is no final separation between fragments and wholes. What sinks from the surface may have begun in sunlight, but by the time an amphipod feeds on it, it has become part of a different world entirely, one shaped by pressure, cold, and stillness. The animal links those worlds simply by eating. It does not know it is connecting biomes. It only knows the scent of available matter and the body's answer to it. Still, the connection is real. Sometimes that is how the largest truths appear, not in dramatic creatures, but in small persistent ones that live where systems meet. The Hadal amphipod tells us that the deepest sea is nourished by what the rest of the ocean lets go. It tells us that remoteness can coexist with dependence. It tells us that even in the trench, life is not solitary. It is supplied by a planet. And perhaps that is the quiet wonder here. At the bottom of one of Earth's deepest places, a pale crustacean feeds on what has drifted down through miles of black water from a world of waves, weather, and sunlight it will never encounter. The distance is immense. The exchange still happens. Beneath all that water, connection keeps falling. Soon enough, other trench lives begin where that exchange leaves off, each one taking the same sparse inheritance and making of it a different body, a different pace, a different way of continuing in the dark. The water is colder here. As depth increases, every familiar feature of a fish begins to look like a question asked again under new rules. A backbone must still bend. Muscles must still contract. Eyes, skin, blood, and membranes must still go on working, while the water above becomes a weight almost beyond intuition. Yet some fishes do continue downward into trench margins and Hadal edges until they arrive near a boundary where fish life begins to thin. Among them are Cusk eels. The name can mislead a little. They are not true eels, though they carry some of the same long and tapering grace. Their bodies are extended, their tails narrow away, and many species seem built less for swift crossing than for enduring the dark with economy. In that shape, there is already a quiet answer. When pressure rises and food is sparse, design tends to simplify. A Cusk eel often looks as though the usual fish plan has been gently stretched. The head remains recognizably fish-like. The mouth opens forward. Fins run in long, soft lines rather than standing sharply apart, and the body can seem almost ribboned as it passes above sediment. Nothing about it suggests haste. That matters. In shallower seas, speed can solve many problems. It can close distance, escape danger, and turn muscle into advantage. But deep near the trench, where meals may be far apart and motion has a cost that cannot easily be replaced, life often favors another style, one that glides close to the bottom, spends carefully, and does not waste itself on grand displays of power. Some trench-associated Cusk eels live along slopes and depths that approach the lower range where fishes are regularly found. Other fishes, including the deepest snailfishes, may descend farther. But Cusk eels occupy an important edge in this story because they remain clearly fish, clearly vertebrate, while carrying so many signs of compromise. They seem to stand where a familiar body plan grows quiet and thin and begins to negotiate with physics itself. What makes this so striking is that vertebrates bring with them a certain set of obligations. Bones must be built and maintained. Nerves must signal cleanly. Muscles must keep their structure. Fluids inside cells and between them must remain useful, while the world outside presses inward with extraordinary steadiness. A vertebrate cannot simply become anything at all. It has inherited a framework, and the trench keeps asking whether that framework can still hold. Part of the answer lies in reduction. Deep trench fishes do not thrive by becoming heavily armored. Hardness can become a burden. Gas spaces become dangerous. Dense, mineralized skeletons can be more than is needed in a place where buoyancy, pressure, and soft ground favor another kind of body. So many species near these depths have lighter bones, less rigid tissues, and bodies that seem almost unfinished by shallow water standards. Yet they are not unfinished. They are edited. That is different. To reduce is not to fail. It is to let go of what the environment no longer rewards. In the trench, evolution often works like a patient sculptor removing excess stone. Except here, the stone is calcium, stiffness, and every feature that costs too much under pressure. The result can look sparse to us, but sparsity may be exactly what endurance requires. Their bones are still there. A Cusk eel remains supported by a vertebral column and skull, by the old architecture of fish ancestry. But those structures can be less robust than in relatives from shallower water, and the whole body may feel organized around flexibility rather than force. In such a place, survival may depend less on resisting the world than on yielding to it in the correct way. The body does not defeat pressure, it accommodates it. That idea appears again inside the cells. At great depth, pressure pushes on molecules themselves. Proteins must keep their shape well enough to do their work. Membranes must remain fluid enough for life to continue. Enzymes must still fold, signal, build, and repair. For fishes approaching Hadal depths, one of the most important aids is a compound called trimethylamine N-oxide, often shortened to TMAO, which helps stabilize proteins under pressure. It is a small chemical with large consequences. Many deep-living fishes carry more of it in their tissues than their shallower relatives. As depth increases, the concentration often rises as well. That pattern tells a quiet story. Fish are not only changing in outline as they descend, they are altering the invisible chemistry of their own interiors, tuning the liquid world within so that the crushing water outside does not undo the delicate shapes on which life depends. And yet, this solution has limits. TMAO is useful, but not free. Adding more of it changes the chemistry of tissues in other ways, including their osmotic balance, and there seems to be a point beyond which the strategy grows difficult to sustain. This may help explain why fishes do not continue forever downward. The lower boundary is not a cliff with a sign. It is more like a narrowing passage, where each deeper meter asks a little more from biochemistry, until the old vertebrate plan approaches its practical edge. That edge is one of the most moving things in the trench. Not because life fails there, but because life comes so close to failing and persists anyway. A Cusk eel gliding over soft sediment is not a symbol of conquest. It is something more patient than that. It is a living arrangement made at the border of the possible, where the answer to pressure is not drama, but adjustment. Darkness shapes them too. Many deep fishes have eyes that are reduced, altered, or matched precisely to the faintness of the world they inhabit. In trench depths, where sunlight never arrives, vision no longer rules the body in the old way. Eyes may still detect dim changes, bioluminescent glimmers, or the vague contrast of something moving nearby. But other senses gain a different authority. Smell, touch, vibration, and the reading of water movement become part of a quieter map. A fish does not need a broad horizon there. It needs enough information to remain alive in the near field. The current along the bottom, the shift of silt, the trace of something edible, the nearness of another body in the dark. This is a world where perception often contracts in distance and deepens in intimacy. Far away matters less. Nearby matters completely. That may be why these animals can seem so inward. Their lives are not staged against open blue water or visible reefs. They pass through a dark measured in body lengths, not landscapes. When a Cusk eel moves, the event may consist of only a few things: a soft bend through the spine, a correction of fins, a downward tilt of the head, a pause above the seafloor where chemistry and current carry information more reliably than sight. The scene is small, but not simple. Its muscles must still work in the cold. Deep water slows chemistry. Reactions take their time. Tissues face not only pressure, but temperature, and these together shape how an animal can move and how often it should. A body built for this realm tends toward conservation. Motion is selective. Effort is portioned out. Even hunting may look less like pursuit than like waiting with precision. Imagine a slope of very fine sediment near the trench edge. Nothing appears to happen at first. The bottom seems almost blank, interrupted only by scattered fragments, faint burrows, and the soft settling of marine snow. Then a pale form, so still it had almost merged with the dimness, begins to move. Not quickly. The head lowers, the body bends once, and a Cusk eel drifts forward just above the ground, as though it were being drawn by a thread. It does not rush because it does not need to. Something in the sediment has given itself away. Perhaps a small crustacean has shifted. Perhaps a worm has disturbed the grains above its hidden path. Perhaps a weak chemical trace has reached the fish and held there, suspended in cold water close to the bottom. The Cusk eel follows with minute corrections, reading what cannot be seen in any ordinary sense. Its fins keep the body nearly suspended. The movement is so controlled that the sediment beneath remains mostly undisturbed. This is important. A cloud of silt would erase the subtle evidence the fish is using. So it advances with care, mouth slightly open, not in menace but in readiness, each movement shaped to preserve the little field of information ahead. In a world with so little excess, even water must be handled gently. Then comes the brief decision. The head dips. The body tightens. A small strike follows, more a quiet intake than a dramatic snap, and something vanishes from the seabed into the mouth. A few grains lift and settle again. The fish hovers for a moment, as if considering whether the place holds anything more. Then it glides onward, long and narrow, back into a darkness that never truly broke. This kind of hunting can seem almost modest, yet modesty may be exactly the right scale for survival here. On land and in shallow seas, we often notice the predator by its force. In the trench, force is not always the governing beauty. Sometimes success belongs to the animal that disturbs least, wastes least, and notices most. The Cusk eel survives not through spectacle, but through restraint made exact. And there is another strangeness. Because these fishes live so near a lower depth limit, each ordinary act they perform carries unusual weight. To feed, to maintain salt balance, to produce eggs or sperm, to grow from one season to the next. These are common tasks for any fish. But near Hadal boundaries, they become reminders that the vertebrate body, familiar from rivers and reefs and shorelines, can be extended much farther into darkness than intuition would predict. Not infinitely far. That is why the limit matters. If fish life ended at a comfortable depth, we might think vertebrate design broadly capable of anything the ocean asks. But the trench gives a more nuanced answer. It says yes for a long while. It says yes through chemistry, softness, reduced bone, slower metabolism, and careful behavior. Then, somewhere deeper, the answer begins to change. There is humility in that. Life is inventive, but it is not free from material law. Proteins fold only within certain tolerances. Membranes can only be tuned so far. Bodies inherited from ancient lineages can only be revised by degrees. A Cusk eel living near this threshold shows us evolution not as magic, but as persistent negotiation, one compromise after another until a body reaches the deepest place it can still remain itself. Still a fish, still with a skull and spine, still moving by muscle along a central axis, still hunting with a mouth, sensing through nerves, reproducing, growing and dying according to the old vertebrate pattern. Even at the edge, it does not become unrecognizable. That may be the most affecting part. Life comes close to a physical limit and remains quietly familiar. There is comfort in familiar things surviving under strange conditions. A Cusk eel does not look like fantasy. It looks, in outline, like something the human mind already knows how to call a fish. Yet it lives where pressure would ruin much of what seems sturdy in our own world. It suggests that familiarity is not the opposite of wonder. Sometimes wonder enters most deeply when the known form persists where it seems it should not. The trench is full of such persistence. Not loud persistence, not triumphant persistence. A patient kind. The kind that trims away excess and keeps only what can continue. In Cusk eels and other fishes near these depths, vertebrate life becomes almost spare, as though the ocean had asked it to carry nothing unnecessary into the dark. What remains is enough. That phrase matters here. Enough bone, but not too much. Enough chemistry to protect proteins. Enough sensing to find a meal. Enough movement to cross the sediment. Enough reproduction to keep a lineage going in a place where every generation must solve the same old pressure once again. At the edge of possibility, abundance gives way to sufficiency, and sufficiency can be beautiful. It also changes how we think about strength. We often picture strength as thickness, force, impact, resistance. But trench fishes suggest another form. Strength can be the ability to remain functional while reduced. It can be the power of a body that has become less rigid, less extravagant, less sure of surplus, and therefore more precisely fitted to what the world allows. There is a quiet dignity in that kind of design. What makes this even more moving is how little sign the animal gives of the difficulty around it. A Cusk eel does not perform the depth. It does not advertise pressure. It simply inhabits its conditions so completely that the impossible begins to look ordinary. That may be one of the deep ocean's most persistent lessons. Once adaptation succeeds, extremity becomes invisible from the inside. The animal is not surrounded by impossibility. It is surrounded by home. Home, even here. Home in cold, in dark, in a water column miles thick. Home near the lower limit of what a fish can biochemically tolerate. Home while moving over sediment that receives only sparse offerings from the world above. The existence of such a home expands the meaning of livable space on Earth. It tells us that habitability is wider, stranger, and more finely tuned than our daylight instincts suggest. And yet the limit remains. That keeps the story honest. The trench is not a place where life simply overcomes everything. It is a place where some lineages go very far and then no farther. The Cusk eel stands near that sentence in the long grammar of evolution, not at an ending exactly, but at a pause where the body says, "This far I can follow." There is something tender in that pause, not defeat, not weakness, a kind of exactness. The fish has been modified until it can live under burdens almost beyond imagining, but it has not ceased to be itself. It has reached a threshold and stayed recognizable. In that way, it becomes more than a deep-sea animal. It becomes a measure of how far a familiar form can drift into the unknown and remain whole. The seafloor below is still. The body above it is still moving. A long, pale fish over dark sediment. A skull, a spine, a narrow tail. A chemistry adjusted just enough. A life lived where vertebrate possibility thins, but does not vanish. When we speak of the edge of fish life, this is what the phrase can hold. Not an abrupt ending, but a soft frontier, where the old design grows delicate and continues anyway. Soon the trench floor will offer another kind of resident, one even quieter, built less around movement than around presence. After the Cusk eel's narrow glide, the eye settles toward forms that seem almost made of the seafloor itself. Patient architectures raised grain by grain in the dark. But not every resident of the trench needs speed, or even the ordinary shape of an animal to transform the world around it. Some do it by staying still. On certain deep slopes and plains, there are forms that look at first like discarded lace, or clotted mud, or the faint remains of something broken long ago, spread over sediment in pale branching fans and folded mats. They can be several inches across, sometimes much larger, and they do not seem in any familiar way alive. They have no face, no limbs, no visible effort. Yet many of these quiet structures are Xenophyophores, among the largest single-celled organisms ever known. That alone is a difficult fact to hold. A single cell is usually imagined as tiny, something only a microscope could meet. Yet here is one that can become broad and intricate, making a body spacious enough to alter the seafloor around it, as though the smallest unit of life had refused the usual agreement about scale. What makes this so strange is not only size, but confidence. One cell, and still enough. Xenophyophores are protists, not animals, and not plants, and not fungi. They belong to a different branch of life's long experiment, one that has been making its own quiet solutions for a very long time. In other words, the trench does not reserve its deepest surprises for creatures with muscles or bones or eyes. Sometimes complexity arrives in a form so simple in principle that it almost feels like a correction to our assumptions. They build structures called tests. A test is an external framework assembled from particles gathered from the seafloor and bound together into delicate forms. These may branch like root systems, spread into flattened discs, rise in lumpy towers, or curl into loose networks with chambers and folds, each shape depending on species and place and the patient availability of sediment. Yet the material is not secret. It is the ordinary floor of the ocean, lifted grain by grain into architecture. That is why Xenophyophores can be easy to miss. They are made partly of where they live, and so they resemble it. The trench has many creatures that survive by hiding, but this is a different kind of hiddenness, because the boundary between organism and setting becomes soft and uncertain. A Xenophyophore is not merely on the seabed. It seems to continue out of it. Inside these tests, the living matter is arranged in threads and masses of cytoplasm. The cell extends through its structure rather than filling it in one solid block, which allows a remarkable spread without requiring the dense compactness that larger bodies often need. There are internal strands, chambers and accumulations, including waste pellets called stercomare and crystal-rich masses called granellare, all part of a life that distributes itself through a fragile framework instead of concentrating into one obvious center. It is a body, though that word starts to feel less exact here. And yet, it functions. The Xenophyophore gathers food from particles settling out of the water or resting on the sediment. It is, in that sense, another participant in the long downward journey of marine snow and all the richer fragments mixed within it. But it receives this falling world with unusual patience. Instead of chasing anything, it waits within a built form that slows water, catches fine matter, and turns stillness itself into a way of feeding. Stillness becomes method. What makes this especially fitting is where many Xenophyophores live. They are often found in deep environments where energy is sparse and movement must be economical, including abyssal and Hadal settings where the seafloor can seem almost empty until the eye adjusts to subtler kinds of presence. In such places, a body that spends little, gathers slowly, and makes itself out of local material begins to look less like an oddity and more like a very refined answer. It does not defeat the deep. It agrees with it. Some species also accumulate unusually high concentrations of heavy metals and other particles within their bodies. Researchers are still studying why and how, but Xenophyophores appear able to tolerate conditions and materials that might trouble other forms of life. Yet even this is less a tale of toughness in the heroic sense than of chemical accommodation, the old deep-sea lesson returning in another form. Survival here often depends on adjustment so intimate that it happens below the level of behavior, in the quiet terms of matter itself. A Xenophyophore does not impose itself on the trench. It settles into the available rules. It takes what the bottom provides and arranges it into a livable shape. There is something ancient in that approach, though these organisms are not ancient in the way a fossil line is ancient. It is ancient in principle. Use what is here. Waste little. Remain open. Let the world pass through. For a long time, some of them were poorly understood because they are so fragile. Bring them up too quickly, and their forms collapse. Disturb the sediment, and the structure can lose the very context that made it legible. That is why much of what we know about them comes from careful observation on the seafloor itself, where cameras drift close and lights reveal not a dramatic animal encounter, but a quiet problem in perception. How do you recognize a life form that almost refuses to separate itself from its surroundings? Slowly, the camera moves over sediment that seems empty except for faint rises and scattered tracks. Then a pale branching shape appears, delicate as if placed there by hand. with loops and filaments lying on the mud in a pattern too organized to be accident, yet too irregular to feel designed in any familiar human sense. Nearby are others. A star-like spread, a soft mound pierced with openings, a flattened fan catching what little current moves this far down. The seafloor begins to look furnished. That change matters. Where Xenophyophores are present, they can increase the physical complexity of the bottom. Their tests create surfaces, edges, hollows, and sheltered spaces in a landscape otherwise made of soft sediment and patient gradients. For smaller animals, those differences are not decorative. They are places to rest, hide, graze, or hunt, small variations in structure that can alter who lives nearby and how the local community arranges itself. In other words, one cell can become habitat. That is among the most beautiful facts the trench offers. We are used to thinking of architecture as something made by many cells working together, or by large animals piling stone and shell, or by corals building colonies over time. Yet here the labor is solitary at the cellular level and still ecologically generous, so that a being outside the ordinary category of animal helps make room for animals all the same. The deep is full of such blurred boundaries: builder and body, organism and landscape, self and shelter. Small crustaceans have been found associated with Xenophyophore tests. So have worms, brittle stars, and other invertebrates that seem to use these structures as elevated ground or protected terrain. The exact relationships vary and are not always fully understood, which feels appropriate. In a place so difficult to visit, many companionships remain partly hidden, their routines carried out beyond most witnessing, as if the trench keeps some of its community life in reserve. Yet the pattern is clear enough. Stillness can attract life. A Xenophyophores does not need to pursue anything to become important. By existing in a certain shape, in a certain place, for long enough, it changes the opportunities around it. There is a gentle lesson in that, though not a moral, and perhaps not even a lesson, only a recognition. Influence is not always an act of force. Sometimes it is a form of patient presence that others begin to use. Imagine the trench slope under a dim remote light. The sediment is fine and pale, rising in soft inclines broken by stones, tracks, and the occasional resting body of something nearly transparent. Here and there sit the Xenophyophores, some like collapsed bouquets, some like rough snowflakes pressed into mud, some like little ruins built from dust, each one holding its place in water cold enough to quiet almost everything. Around one of them, an amphipod pauses in the lee of a ridge. A small brittle star lifts an arm and settles it again. Fine particles drift down and vanish into surfaces that seem passive, though they are not. Nothing hurries. Current moves just enough to lay a faint direction across the seabed. A thread of detritus catches on a branching edge. Another settles into a fold. The Xenophyophore receives these arrivals without motion anyone could easily see, because the work is happening at scales below drama, within a single enormous cell spread through chambers of gathered sediment and organic cement. Feeding here looks almost like waiting, yet waiting is not emptiness. It is a kind of participation. One of the strangest things about Xenophyophores is that they make largeness feel different. A whale is large by gathering many parts into one moving whole. A reef is large by being many individuals together. But a Xenophyophore can be large by extension, by reaching outward through a brittle house of particles until one cell occupies a footprint that seems to belong to more complex creatures. That means size itself is not a single idea in biology. It can be achieved by multiplication, by accumulation, by elongation, by looseness. Life keeps changing the terms. And yet Xenophyophores are not triumphant creatures. Their grandeur is delicate. A strong disturbance can damage them. Their forms can be irregular, friable, and temporary compared with shell or bone. They do not conquer the seafloor so much as briefly pattern it, making an arrangement that may persist for a while and then collapse back into sediment. There is something almost calligraphic in that, a line drawn in mud by patience, then softened by time. That delicacy deepens their meaning. The deepest ocean is often imagined as a realm where only the hardest and most armored forms could endure, as if pressure should reward solidity above all else. Xenophyophores suggest another possibility. In a place of immense force, it can also be useful to be light, distributed, porous, and only partly distinct from the ground beneath you. Strength, here as elsewhere in the trench, is not always hardness. Sometimes it is the ability to remain intact while being open. Their internal organization carries this thought even further. Because the living mass is spread through a broad test, there is no obvious single front or back, no face to orient a viewer, no posture to read. The Xenophyophore does not meet the world from one direction. It meets it across a surface. What makes this so quietly radical is how it widens the idea of what a body can be. Not every life needs a central corridor from mouth to stomach to tail, or a head from which decisions seem to proceed. Some lives are field-like. That is a useful word here. Field-like. It suggests presence spread over an area rather than contained in a point. A xenophyophore is not formless, but its form is expansive, reticulate, almost environmental. To encounter one is to see a living thing behaving a little like weathered terrain and a little like a dwelling, as though life had paused halfway between organism and place and found that halfway state sufficient. The trench allows such sufficiencies. Scientists remain interested in Xenophyophores, not only because they are strange, but because they may matter more than their quietness suggests. In some deep habitats, they are numerous enough to influence biodiversity, and their presence can mark environmental conditions worth studying, including patterns of sedimentation and current. Yet even when science speaks in these measured ways, another meaning drifts beneath the language. Where we expected emptiness, there is structure. Where we expected bare mud, there is design. And the design is alive. This returns us to the simple fact that can still feel almost impossible. One cell, not one colony or one woven family of cells, but one. The trench, which already asks us to loosen many surface assumptions, asks for another loosening here. Complexity does not always require crowds. Sometimes it arrives through expansion, persistence, and a patient conversation with sediment. What does a xenophyophore add to this deep world? Not speed, not intellect in the way we usually praise it, not predatory elegance or visible daring. It adds texture, shelter, slight elevation, a gatheredness of loose material into habitable form. In the Mariana Trench and its neighboring depths, where distances are vast and food comes slowly, such modest gifts can alter the shape of local life more than any brief display of force. That may be why these organisms feel so moving. They are builders of almost nothing, which becomes enough. Dust, fragments, falling remains, tiny particles too ordinary to notice on their own. These are accepted, arranged, and held for a while in patterns that let other lives gather nearby. There is no spectacle in this, only use, only quiet making. It is one of the trench's gentlest arguments that significance need not look dramatic from a distance. And yet, significance is there. A Xenophyophore reminds us that the deep ocean is not only inhabited by creatures moving through darkness, it is also shaped by presences that barely seem to move at all, by lives whose main act is to create a little structure in a world of settling grains. Even at the level of one cell, life can become architectural. It can turn stillness into environment. That thought lingers. Perhaps because it suggests that complexity is not always busy. It can be slow enough to resemble geology. It can be so patient that unless we look carefully, we confuse it with the ground. And then, when we do look carefully, the ground itself appears changed, no longer empty sediment, but a place where single cells have made room for company. The trench keeps offering versions of the same quiet truth. Life does not meet extremity with one plan. Sometimes it becomes soft, sometimes chemically careful, sometimes nearly transparent. And sometimes it grows vast without becoming many, raising a fragile house from the seabed and living through it like thought through memory. One cell, spread into shelter in the dark beneath worlds of water. That is enough wonder for a long while. Far off, on another stretch of the deep floor, something else is crossing the sediment with equal patience, leaving almost no mark but the faint rearrangement of grains. The water is colder here, not sharply colder. Just enough that movement seems to belong to another scale, as if everything beneath has agreed to spend itself carefully. On these plains and slopes near the trench, some of the most constant travelers are sea cucumbers, soft-bodied echinoderms that cross the sediment with a patience so complete it can seem almost like stillness. They are not rushing toward prey, and they are not fleeing from danger. They are simply passing over the bottom, taking in the seafloor a little at a time. At first, a sea cucumber can seem almost too simple to hold the mind. It has no face in the way a fish has a face, no obvious eyes, no limbs arranged for drama. Its body is usually long and yielding, with a mouth at one end, an opening at the other, and rows of tube feet or papillae that help it manage the ground beneath it. Yet what makes this simplicity remarkable is that it is not primitive in the careless sense, not unfinished or waiting to become something grander, but exquisitely fitted to a life where the world arrives as sediment, bacteria, decaying matter, and faint chemical traces spread across a cold, dark floor. It is enough. Sea cucumbers belong to the same larger branch of life as sea stars and sea urchins. That kinship is easy to miss at first. Most sea cucumbers do not look star-shaped at all. Their bodies are stretched into a soft cylinder, as though the radial symmetry of their relatives has been drawn out and laid gently on its side, while the old pattern remains hidden beneath the surface in the arrangement of body parts and internal design. In other words, even an animal that seems built like a simple sack is carrying a deep ancestral geometry inside it. The past does not disappear. Their skin can be thick, leathery, or almost translucent. Beneath it sit tiny skeletal elements called ossicles, small pieces of calcite scattered through the body wall rather than joined into a hard shell. That is why many sea cucumbers keep the support of an internal mineral framework without becoming rigid, and why they can remain flexible in places where flexibility matters more than armor. At trench depth, where pressure does not reward brittle resistance, a body that can yield without breaking becomes a quiet kind of wisdom. Softness returns again. Many deep-sea species are pale. Some are pink, violet, ghostly white, or the dim rust red of diluted blood. Others seem almost colorless, as if they were made from the seafloor's own weak lightlessness. Pigment matters less where sunlight never arrives, and so the body is freed from certain surface concerns that shape life above. What remains is not beauty for display, but beauty as byproduct, color reduced to a hush. And yet, some sea cucumbers do something stranger still. They swim. Not all of them, and not quickly. But several deep-sea species can lift off from the seafloor and drift or pulse through the water by flexing their bodies and waving fin-like membranes or enlarged tube feet along their sides. A creature that seems designed only to lie against the mud may suddenly rise into the dark like a loose ribbon or a soft leaf caught in a current. The abyss keeps offering the same reminder. We mistake gentleness for incapacity. One famous group, sometimes called sea pigs, walks on elongated tube feet over abyssal mud. Seen close, they can appear faintly translucent, with swollen bodies held above the bottom on delicate stilts. Other forms, such as Enypniastes, are more like floating veils, able to leave the sediment entirely and travel in short drifting bouts before settling again. That is why the category sea cucumber contains more variation than the name suggests, from deliberate crawlers to animals that alternate between walking and a kind of underwater gliding. Even here, one body plan becomes many answers. Tube feet do more than move the body. They grip, test, brace, and feel. Sea cucumbers operate through a water-vascular system inherited from their echinoderm lineage, using fluid pressure inside internal canals to extend and withdraw these soft structures. Movement, then, is partly hydraulic, a matter of water redistributed through living tissue so that contact with the ground can be made and remade, grain after grain. There is something fitting in that an animal of the deep floor moved in part by water from within, carrying the sea's logic inside itself. At the mouth, many species have feeding tentacles. These are modified tube feet, arranged in a ring, branching or feathered depending on the species and its way of feeding. Some sea cucumbers sweep these tentacles over the sediment, coating them in the fine particles and then drawing each one back to the mouth to be licked clean. Others gather material more broadly, shoveling in the uppermost layer of mud and extracting what nourishment they can from its mixture of bacteria, detritus, and organic fragments. The gesture is repetitive, almost plain, yet it is one of the great maintenance acts of the seafloor. They eat the bottom itself, but only partly. Most of what enters a sea cucumber is not food in the rich sense. It is sediment carrying a sparse harvest, microbial films, decaying remains, fecal pellets, and the faint nutritional residue of life from elsewhere. The animal sorts value from abundance so thinly spread that the meal is almost an act of reading, a slow interpretation of mud for traces of what can be used. That is what deep feeding often becomes. Not abundance seized, but scarcity patiently sifted. As they feed, sea cucumbers rework the seabed. Sediment passes through the gut and emerges altered, aerated in some settings, repackaged in others, moved from one patch to the next through constant low motion. On shallow sea floors, this turning can influence oxygen exchange and nutrient cycling, and in the deep, it still matters, though on a slower stage and under colder rules. The plain is not only a place where material settles, it is a place where material is quietly processed by bodies that seem, at first glance, too gentle to count as engineers. But they are engineers. They do not build towers. They do not excavate grand holes visible from far away. Their work is distributed, almost impossible to notice unless watched over long spans, because it happens through ingestion, digestion, and the rearrangement of grains. Yet entire stretches of soft bottom are shaped by such labor, and many other organisms live within the conditions it helps maintain. Sometimes the great work of a landscape is done by those who barely disturb it. Deep-sea sea cucumbers can be surprisingly numerous. Where food arrives in usable amounts and the sediment suits them, they may gather in densities high enough that a camera passing over the bottom finds body after body, each one separated by just enough distance to continue feeding. The scene does not look crowded in the human sense. It looks measured. A plain of slow recyclers, each taking a narrow path through the same dark field, each converting drift into continuation. That matters because the deep seafloor is fed from above. By the time organic material has fallen through kilometers of water, much has already been consumed, broken apart, or dissolved into the larger exchange of the ocean. What reaches the trench and its surrounding plains is often faint, sporadic, and precious. Sea cucumbers live in that delayed economy, collecting the remnants of distant sunlight without ever knowing the sun itself. They are reminders that ecosystems can persist on leftovers and still become intricate. Some species are deposit feeders. Others are suspension feeders, raising branched tentacles into the water just above the sediment to catch particles drifting by. In places where currents move gently along the bottom, this can be a useful strategy, allowing the animal to harvest what the water brings rather than what the mud has stored. The difference seems small, but it changes posture, behavior, and relationship to the landscape. One animal reads the ground, another reads the flow, and yet both are practicing the same patience. They wait for diluted nourishment and convert it into muscle, gut lining, gametes, and the slow persistence of a body. There is no hurry in such metabolism. Cold water lowers costs. Sparse food rewards restraint. The trench world does not eliminate life. It asks life to become economical enough that almost nothing is wasted. Some deep species become nearly buoyant. Their tissues may contain large amounts of water and reduced amounts of dense material, making the body less costly to support and easier to lift from the bottom when needed. That is why certain pelagic or benthopelagic sea cucumbers look so insubstantial, almost as if they are only briefly occupying the form of an animal before dissolving back into the sea. But the design is exact. To be mostly water in a world of water is not to be unfinished. It is to remove what is unnecessary. Their respiratory trees are stranger than many people expect. Inside the body, branching sacs connected to the rear opening exchange gases with seawater drawn in and out through rhythmic contractions. It is an arrangement so unusual that it can sound improvised, and yet it serves. The sea cucumber breathes through an architecture hidden deep within a body that appears almost blank from the outside. What looks plain is often merely private. That privacy extends to defense. Some shallow water sea cucumbers can expel sticky internal organs or toxic substances when attacked, sacrificing part of themselves in order to survive. Deep sea forms vary, and not all use the same methods, but the broader point remains. Even a soft recycler is not helpless. Yet the most striking thing is not the violence of these defenses. It is that life has allowed such vulnerable-seeming bodies to persist at all, provided they are patient, chemically prepared, and willing to trade ornament for function. Reproduction, too, is often entrusted to the water. Many species release eggs and sperm into the sea, relying on timing, proximity, and currents to bring cells together in darkness. Others brood or produce larvae shaped for drifting before settling to the bottom and joining the benthic world. The young, in many cases, begin as part of the ocean's suspended life before becoming part of its floor. That movement from drifting to settling feels almost like the trench's own story in miniature. What falls may become what remains. There is another quiet fact about sea cucumbers. Some can alter the stiffness of their body wall. Special connective tissues allow them to become firmer or softer under nervous control, changing how the body holds shape against the ground or through disturbance. A sea cucumber can, in a limited but real sense, tune its own consistency. That is an extraordinary ability hidden inside an animal often dismissed as formless. Formlessness here is not absence of design. It is adjustable design. Imagine one crossing the Hadal sediment in the dark. Not the quick dark of a room after a switch is turned off, but the old planetary dark that has never once known dawn. Its body is lifted slightly on tube feet, or else it lies close against the fine mud, gathering and swallowing a ribbon of surface material. Each movement is small. Each pause is long. Around it, the bottom extends in quiet ripples and settled dust, marked by tracks, pellets, and the faint geometry of lives conducted with little witness. A feeding tentacle lowers and presses into the sediment. Then it curls back toward the mouth. Another follows, and another. There is a rhythm to it that no one taught. The tentacles gather what the plane can spare, and the gut takes over, separating the little from the littler, the usable from the nearly empty. Behind the animal, the sediment carries the signs of passage, not as wound, but as revision, as though the floor itself has been read and softly rewritten. Nothing dramatic has happened. Something essential has. Perhaps a current shifts. A thin cloud of disturbed particles lifts and then settles again. Nearby, an amphipod flickers over the surface and vanishes into distance, while a Xenophyophore stands in its delicate stillness, like a low ruin made by one patient cell. The sea cucumber continues. That is what makes the scene so deep in its calm. The animal is not the interruption. It is part of the ordinary maintenance of the place, one more quiet mechanism through which the trench keeps itself livable. If it is a swimming species, the scene changes with almost no warning. The body loosens from the bottom. Lateral structures spread. A slow series of undulations passes from one end to the other, and the animal lifts into the water column by a margin so slight it feels less like departure than like hesitation made visible. Then it glides a little way through the dark, not to perform grace, but to relocate, avoid burial, seek better feeding ground, or simply answer conditions the seafloor no longer suits. It is a soft decision. When it settles again, it settles completely. The body yields to the contour beneath it. Tentacles resume their work. The track will continue from here, almost indistinguishable from all the others except to the animal making it. That is one of the deep ocean's recurring truths. Individual lives may be quiet almost beyond notice, and still they are precise, situated, and full of specific choices. We often reserve our attention for predators, for speed, for the instant when one life overtakes another. Sea cucumbers ask for another scale of regard. They matter because they process what has already happened. They receive the remains of meals, deaths, molts, marine snow, microbial growth, and all the scattered leftovers of a larger ocean, then return that material to the system in altered form. In other words, they are part of how the bottom stays available to life after life after life. Continuity has workers. There is something almost tender in that role. To live by taking what the world discards and to make from it a body capable of movement, reproduction, and further service to the habitat is a very quiet kind of achievement. Nothing about it seeks admiration. The sea cucumber does not blaze or strike or flee with elegance. It keeps going, and in going, it prevents the seafloor from becoming only a place of accumulation. It turns settling into circulation. That may be why these animals feel so dreamlike to us. They move slowly. They are soft. Some seem barely outlined against the dark. Many carry none of the visual signals humans are trained to read as alertness or intention. Yet beneath that apparent blankness is a complete and active life, one fitted to a world where the main challenge is not spectacle, but continuity. The trench does not need every resident to be fierce. It needs many of them to be faithful. Faithful to the work of touching the sediment. Faithful to the old exchange between death and nourishment. Faithful to the patient conversion of drift into living tissue. When we think about survival in the deepest ocean, it is easy to imagine extremity as something sharp, armored, or severe. Sea cucumbers offer another answer. Survival can also look like softness moving through silt, like a body willing to process what others leave behind, like a life so undramatic that its importance disappears unless someone kneels in thought beside it for a while. The abyss is sustained not only by those who endure it, but by those who continuously tidy it. And that means the trench is not merely a place where things fall. It is a place where falling is answered. Every grain with a trace of nourishment, every flake of once living matter, every small remainder arriving from the long water above may become part of this slow economy of ingestion and return. Sea cucumbers stand near the center of that exchange, not because they rule it, but because they accept its humble terms completely. They are creatures of afterlife in the plainest ecological sense. They live where endings are sorted into beginnings. There is deep comfort in such an animal, not because it is cute or familiar or easy to personify. It is none of those things, at least not much. The comfort comes from seeing that an ecosystem so distant and pressurized is upheld in part by gentleness, by repetitive labor, by bodies that do not conquer their landscape so much as cooperate with its slow demands. Some worlds are held together by force. This one, in no small measure, is held together by patient digestion. So the sea cucumber crosses the abyssal plain. It crosses it one mouthful at a time. Behind it, the sediment settles into a new arrangement. Ahead of it, more of the dark floor waits with its thin offerings. The animal does not need a dramatic life for the life to matter. Beneath all our usual ideas of importance, it performs one of the oldest tasks in the living world, taking what is left, changing it, and giving the place another chance to continue. And once you have noticed that, the seafloor changes. It no longer seems empty between the more vivid creatures. It begins to feel inhabited by process itself, by ongoing acts so quiet they almost merge with geology. The trench is full of such lives, lives whose greatness is inseparable from their modesty, and whose bodies seem made less for display than for remaining in relationship with a cold, dark world. They do not ask to be seen. They simply keep the bottom alive. Far off in the same patient deep, other creatures solve the pressure in a different way, not through the shape of their feeding or the softness of their gait, but through chemistry written into every cell. But the body has more surprises yet. A trench shrimp can look almost familiar at first. It has jointed legs, a curved body, antennae feeling through the dark, and the compact shape of a crustacean doing what crustaceans have done for a very long time. Yet what makes this animal remarkable is not only what can be seen from outside. It is the quieter fact that nearly every fluid, membrane and protein inside it must keep working where pressure would alter the behavior of molecules themselves. That is the deeper adjustment. At the surface, water presses lightly enough that most bodies never need to notice. In the Mariana Trench, pressure climbs to a force so great that the ordinary chemistry of life begins to misbehave. Proteins can change shape. Membranes can lose the balance between firmness and flexibility that cells depend on. In other words, the trench does not merely squeeze an animal from around the edges. It presses into the conditions of being alive. That is why Hadal shrimp are not only built for depth, they are composed for it. Their survival depends on countless microscopic choices made by evolution over long spans of time, until a body can continue its quiet tasks in darkness, where those same tasks would fail in most other creatures. The wonder here is intimate. The solution is not a shield, it is compatibility. One of the most important of these chemical companions is a small organic molecule called trimethylamine N oxide, usually shortened to TMAO. It occurs in many marine animals, but in deep living species it often appears in greater amounts, where it helps proteins keep their proper shape under pressure. A shrimp in Hadal water carries this molecule not as decoration or spare material, but as part of the calm negotiation between life and force. It is chemistry acting like shelter. Proteins are folded things. Their work depends on shape. An enzyme can speed a reaction only when its surfaces are arranged with almost improbable precision, and pressure has a way of disturbing that precision, nudging structure toward less useful forms until metabolism itself begins to falter. TMAO helps resist that drift. It steadies the fold. That means one of the great deep-sea adaptations is almost invisible. A Hadal shrimp survives partly because its cells are full of molecular assistants, each one helping the machinery of life stay itself in conditions that would quietly unravel it elsewhere. There is something moving in that. The trench asks life to defend not only limbs and organs, but the geometry of its smallest working parts. And yet, chemical protection is never one single answer. Cell membranes matter too. Every cell is wrapped in a boundary made largely of fats, and those fats cannot be too stiff or too loose if a cell is to function well. Pressure tends to pack molecules together. That is why many deep-sea animals adjust the composition of their membranes, using lipids that help preserve the right kind of fluidity in the cold and under immense weight. A membrane sounds passive. It is not. It is a busy threshold, deciding what enters, what leaves, how signals pass, how energy is gathered, how one region of a cell remains distinct from another. If pressure changes the character of that threshold, then the entire cell inherits the trouble. So when Hadal shrimp alter membrane chemistry, they are preserving more than softness. They are preserving conversation. This is the strange tenderness of biochemistry. We often imagine adaptation as armor, teeth, speed, or shape. But here, adaptation can mean a fatty acid bent one way instead of another, or a dissolved compound present at one concentration instead of a lower one. And those quiet differences determine whether a nerve fires, whether a muscle contracts, whether digestion continues, whether life remains coherent. It is a very small kind of survival. It is also total. Even body fluids become part of the story. Salts, ions, dissolved compounds, and water must remain in workable balance, because pressure influences how molecules interact and how reactions proceed. A Hadal shrimp is not simply carrying blood-like fluids through itself. It is carrying a carefully maintained chemical environment, a moving interior sea made fit for depth. That interior must stay patient. What makes this so compelling is that the trench enters the animal without entering it. The surrounding water does not need to break the body open in order to change what life requires. Pressure is already present everywhere, acting through every tissue. And so the shrimp must answer from everywhere too, down to the level of solutes and folded proteins and the soft architecture of the cell. The whole body becomes a response spoken in chemistry. There may also be limits built into that chemistry. Some researchers think TMAO and related adaptations help explain why certain kinds of animals can live only so deep before their physiology reaches a boundary. In fishes, this question has become especially vivid because the concentration needed to counter pressure may eventually conflict with other biological constraints. Shrimp and other crustaceans reveal a different branch of the same problem. Life keeps working, but only by negotiating very carefully with physics. That matters. It means the deepest ocean is not inhabited by heroes overcoming nature through force. It is inhabited by forms of life that remain possible only because they match the terms of the place with unusual precision. Strength in the trench often looks like exactness. It looks like getting the chemistry just right. Some Hadal shrimp are scavengers. Others take smaller prey or graze on organic material spread thinly across the seafloor. Their feeding appendages sort, seize, tear, and pass food inward with the practical concentration of animals that cannot afford waste. Yet beneath that familiar business of eating lies another difficulty. Digestion itself depends on enzymes, and enzymes are among the pressure-sensitive structures that must still perform their work in darkness miles below. So, even a meal becomes a molecular event. The shrimp finds a piece of drifting nourishment, handles it with practiced limbs, and begins to break it down using proteins that have been made capable of functioning where ordinary biochemistry would hesitate. A feeding animal is easy to picture. What is harder to picture, and perhaps more beautiful, is that every bite depends on countless reactions succeeding under a force almost beyond intuition. The body dines by chemistry. Their exoskeletons also tell a quieter story than one might expect. In shallower crustaceans, mineralized armor can be substantial, giving support and protection through rigid layers of chitin reinforced with calcium compounds. In the deepest settings, heavy mineralization may become less useful or more costly, and some Hadal crustaceans show lighter, less heavily calcified structures. Pressure changes the economics of hardness. It asks what must truly be rigid and what can remain more yielding. That question returns again and again in the deep. We tend to associate survival with becoming tougher in the plainest sense. Yet many trench animals endure by reducing whatever would become a liability under pressure, while strengthening function in subtler ways. The Hadal shrimp is still a crustacean. It still carries itself in sections, hinges, and armor. But even here, depth rewards a body that does not insist on surface solutions. Its eyes may be reduced. In some species, they are small, pale, or less useful in the darkness where sunlight never arrives. Sensory effort shifts elsewhere. Antennae become more important. Chemical detection matters. Touch matters. The world arrives not as scenery, but as gradients, traces, faint contacts, and disturbances in water. A shrimp can live in blackness, because blackness is not emptiness to the senses it actually uses. That is one of the quiet lessons of the trench. Losing one kind of information can make room for another kind to become refined. Vision recedes. Chemistry and touch come forward. The animal does not live in a lesser world. It lives in a differently legible one. Picture the seafloor for a moment, if only softly. Fine sediment lies over the trench floor in a dim plane of browns and greys. Nothing shines. Nothing announces itself. Then a thread of scent begins to spread from a fallen scrap of food, perhaps part of a fish, perhaps some smaller drifting loss from far above, and the water carries that thread outward in almost invisible geometry. A Hadal shrimp pauses. Its antennae extend and test the current. One front limb lifts, then settles. The body angles very slightly, as if listening through the water rather than hearing it. There is no rush. There is only a decision made in increments, guided by chemical traces too faint for anything like certainty, yet clear enough for a life trained by scarcity. It begins to move. The legs work in sequence over the soft bottom. Sediment stirs, then settles almost at once. The shrimp advances, stops, tests again, and turns by a few patient degrees until the source lies somewhere ahead in the dark. Behind the visible motion, nerves conduct signals through membranes maintained for pressure. Muscles contract using proteins that still fold correctly, and each step is made possible by chemistry holding steady under conditions that never relax. It is a hunt, but also a proof. Another shrimp appears from the side, then another beyond it. They have followed their own versions of the same faint invitation. There is little drama in their arrival. Bodies gather, antennae crossing and withdrawing, appendages probing, each animal locating the food through contact and scent more than sight. The scene is communal without gentleness, practical without haste. When they feed, the movements are exact. Small claws and mouthparts work continuously, reducing a drifting gift into pieces the body can use. The sediment around them darkens where it is disturbed. One individual braces itself against the bottom, while another lifts slightly, balancing in the water for an instant before settling again. In the trench, even feeding has the rhythm of patience. And yet this quiet scene contains an extraordinary fact. Every animal here is doing ordinary life at extraordinary pressure. They are not displaying adaptation as performance. They are simply eating. That may be the most astonishing part. The impossible becomes background, and what remains in the foreground is an old, familiar act, finding food in the dark and making use of it. Sometimes deep-sea landers lowered by researchers have found amphipod-like crustaceans and shrimp-like scavengers arriving quickly once bait reaches the bottom. Their response can seem almost sudden, though the place itself remains still. Scent travels. Detection happens. Bodies converge. In such moments, the trench reveals that stillness is not absence of awareness. It is awareness stretched across time and distance. A baited camera resting in darkness may record only sparse movement at first. Then a pale form passes at the edge. Another follows. Soon the seafloor around the frame is occupied by lives that had been present all along, dispersed through the black water and soft sediment, waiting within reach of information. The scene can feel like emergence, but it is really connection becoming visible. Chemistry writes the invitation, and the animals answer. What makes this behavior especially striking is how fully it depends on the internal adaptations we cannot watch. A shrimp tracing a scent plume across Hadal mud looks straightforward enough, but simple behavior often rests on immense hidden sophistication. The antenna detects, the nervous system interprets, the muscles respond, the digestive tract prepares. Every one of those actions is pressure sensitive, and every one has been made possible through molecular accommodation. In other words, the trench shrimp is not only surviving around pressure, it is surviving through pressure-adjusted thought, movement, appetite, and repair. The adaptation is not added onto life from the outside. It has become life's ordinary method at depth. There is a philosophical softness in that. We often separate the grand from the small, as if the meaning of an animal lies in its visible outline, while molecules belong to another story. But Hadal shrimp do not permit that division. Their shape and their chemistry are one continuous answer. The visible body is only the larger handwriting of a much finer script. And what that finer script says is something like this: life can persist by changing scale. When the environment becomes too severe for surface strategies, adaptation can move inward. It can become less about posture and more about compatibility, less about confronting the world and more about tuning to it with exquisite patience. The deepest ocean is filled with these inward solutions. That does not make them lesser, it makes them profound. A molecule that helps a protein keep its fold under pressure may seem humble beside a fin or a shell or a luminous organ. Yet without such modest assistance, none of the visible marvels could endure. Deep life depends on tiny fidelities repeated everywhere, millions of times, in every tissue, with no audience at all. The Hadal shrimp offers a kind of quiet correction to how we imagine resilience. Resilience is not always the ability to remain unchanged. Sometimes it is the ability to remain functional by changing very precisely. It is the art of retaining life's pattern while adjusting its materials so that the old processes can continue in a new and difficult world. This is a subtler kind of strength. It glides beneath notice. And perhaps that is why these animals belong here in the trench's story. They draw our attention inward, past shell and leg and eye, into the hidden labor that every living body performs. They remind us that survival is not only architecture, it is maintenance. It is chemistry renewed moment by moment, a patient stability achieved in conditions that would seem to forbid it. Far below, a shrimp crosses the sediment and pauses beside some small piece of fallen food. Its antennae move once, then grow still. Within its body, membranes hold their proper texture. Proteins keep their shape. Reactions proceed. Nothing glows. Nothing announces itself. The miracle, if that is the right word, is that all of this continues so quietly. And once you begin to notice life at that scale, the trench changes again. It becomes not just a landscape of dark water and soft bottom, but a place where molecules have learned the manners of pressure. From there, it is only a small step toward other creatures whose bodies do not merely withstand the deep, but move through it with a strange kind of thoughtfulness. The water is colder here. Some trench lives are shaped not only by pressure, but by attention, by the ability to feel a world before it can be seen. In the deeper Pacific, along slopes and margins that lean toward trench depths, octopuses move through dark sediment and scattered stone with a kind of patience that seems almost thoughtful. They are not Hadal in the same way as the animals pressed deepest into the trench floor, yet some live near those descending edges where the seafloor grows sparse and the dark becomes complete. Their presence matters because it brings something unusual into this quiet geography. Not just survival, but inquiry. An octopus is soft almost everywhere. There is no inner skeleton to brace it, no outer shell to hold its shape. Only muscle, connective tissue, cartilage in a few small places, and a body that can pour itself into forms that seem briefly impossible. That softness allows an octopus to pass through narrow openings, flatten against rock, fold into crevices, and make its own outline uncertain in a world where certainty can be dangerous. What makes this remarkable is not only the escape itself, but the design principle beneath it. In a place of hard edges and limited shelter, the animal survives by refusing to stay one shape for long. It yields. That yielding does not mean weakness. It means that the body can become a question rather than an object. A crab has one answer to a crack in the rock. A fish has another. The octopus meets the same crack by changing until it fits, as if reminding us that one way to inhabit a difficult world is to remain unfinished from moment to moment. Softness again becomes a form of strength. Its blood is unusual too. Like many other mollusks, octopuses use hemocyanin rather than hemoglobin to carry oxygen. Hemocyanin is copper-based, not iron-based, and when it binds oxygen, it gives the blood a blue color. More importantly here, it can perform better than hemoglobin in cold water and under the low oxygen conditions common in the deep sea, though this system brings its own demands and inefficiencies. That is why deep octopuses can continue in a dark, chilly place where every breath of dissolved oxygen must count. Even at the level of blood, the body has been tuned for another kind of world. The familiar vertebrate solution is not the only one. Life keeps finding different chemical ways to do the same old work of carrying breath through tissue. And in the trench's neighborhood, that difference becomes deeply practical, the quiet edge between enough oxygen and not enough. Blue blood sounds strange to us because we treat our own pattern as standard. It is not standard. It is only one answer. The arms may be stranger still. Each arm carries rows of suckers, and each sucker is both a tool and a sense organ. An octopus does not only grasp with its arms, it tastes with them, touches with them, and gathers chemical information directly from the surfaces it explores, so that stone, shell, mud, and skin can all be known through contact. In other words, the animal is not separate from the world in the way vision often makes us feel separate. It learns by meeting things directly. This changes the feel of intelligence. For humans, thought is so often tied to looking, naming, and placing things at a distance. For an octopus, much of understanding arrives through touch and chemistry, through the patient sampling of what is immediately beneath it. The mind here is not hovering above the body as a commander. it is spread outward into reaching, tasting, testing limbs. Intelligence becomes contact. That distributed design is not a metaphor. A large portion of an octopus's neurons are not packed into a single central brain, but are found in the arms themselves. The brain remains important, of course, yet each arm can process information and coordinate many actions locally, managing complex movements without waiting for every detail to be directed from the center. Yet this does not make the animal less unified. It makes unity itself more subtle. What makes this arrangement so quietly astonishing is what it suggests about the idea of a self. We tend to imagine intelligence as something gathered behind the eyes, sealed inside a skull, issuing commands outward. The octopus offers another possibility. Decision and sensation can be distributed, shared across the body, as if the boundary between thinking and feeling were thinner than we assumed. A creature can be coherent without being centralized in the usual way. A mind can glide through 8 arms. Its skin is busy even when it seems still. Octopuses are famous for chromatophores, the pigment-containing cells that expand and contract to change color. But the full system also includes deeper reflective structures and muscles that alter the skin's texture. Some species can darken, pale, mottle, stripe, or raise small papillae, so the body resembles rough stone, sediment, or something not worth noticing. In brighter waters, this can produce dramatic visual mimicry. In the dim deep, it still matters, though often more softly, as a way of blurring edges, reducing contrast, and becoming one more uncertain surface among many. Camouflage here is not performance. It is restraint. It is the art of ceasing to stand out. In shallow reefs, where color and pattern can be vivid, camouflage can seem theatrical to human eyes. Along the deep margins near trench country, the same capacity settles into something quieter. The animal fades instead of dazzles. The body says less. And yet, the same animal that hides so well is intensely curious. Octopuses investigate jars, shells, traps, rocks, and the movements of unfamiliar objects with slow persistence. In laboratory settings and in the sea, they have shown memory, problem-solving, exploratory play, and the ability to learn from repeated encounters. We should be careful with human comparisons, because the octopus is not a person in another shape. Still, there is a quality to its attention that feels eerily familiar. It acts as if the world can be figured out. That is why people return to octopuses again and again when thinking about intelligence. Not because they are little humans of the deep, because they are so clearly not that, and yet thought seems present all the same. Evolution arrived at something mind-like through a very distant route, under a body plan unlike ours, in water, in darkness, in solitude. The result is both familiar and distant at once. It broadens the meaning of thinking. Deep-living octopuses often live quietly and alone. They do not form societies like fish schools or mammal groups, and many encounters with others of their kind may be brief, tied to mating or to the practical coincidence of food and habitat. Their world is more often made of surfaces than of companions. The contour of a rock, the soft slope of mud, the hollow of a shell, the faint trail of prey. What makes this solitude interesting is that intelligence here does not seem to arise from social complexity alone. It can also emerge from a difficult physical world that must be solved touch by touch. A single arm enters a crack in the seafloor. The body remains outside, pale and almost motionless, while the tip of the arm glides deeper between 2 stones where a small crustacean has hidden itself. Suckers test the surface. The arm bends, pauses, curls and extends again, not blindly but experimentally, taking in shape, texture and the faint chemical signs of life. There is no rush. The hunt begins long before the capture. This is one of the quietest predatory scenes in the ocean. No speed, no chase through open water, no obvious drama unless you are close enough to notice how much information is passing through those soft, searching limbs. The octopus is building a map by contact, assembling the unseen from scattered touches until the hidden animal inside the crack is no longer hidden at all. In darkness, knowledge becomes a form of approach. Sometimes the prey is taken with a quick pull. Sometimes the octopus surrounds a rock or a patch of sediment with the webbing between its arms, making a living tent beneath which it can probe in private. Some octopuses can also drill into shelled prey with the help of their beak and saliva, opening defenses that would stop a less versatile hunter. Yet the essential action remains patient. The animal does not simply overpower the world. It studies the world until an opening appears. That way of hunting reveals a great deal. Predation is often imagined as force meeting weakness. Here, it looks more like attention meeting concealment. The octopus succeeds not because it is the fastest animal in the water, but because it can remain with uncertainty longer than many others can. It keeps feeling around the edges of a problem. In a sense, it hunts by refusing to give up on mystery too soon. Its movement suits that method. When not swimming, an octopus often crawls over the bottom, using its arms in coordinated shifts, pulling and placing itself with a strange, deliberate glide. Swimming is possible, driven by jet propulsion, but it is costly and usually reserved for escape or repositioning. Along the deep sea floor, where energy is precious and the landscape offers surfaces to work with, crawling lets the body remain close to information. It stays in contact with the world it needs to read. That contact changes the whole atmosphere of the animal. A fish crossing the same terrain may pass over it. The octopus moves through it. It drapes over stone, settles into hollows, reaches into absence, and advances as if the seafloor were not background, but text. Every ridge can be sampled. Every small cavity can be questioned. The hunt becomes almost scholarly in its patience. The beak at the center of the arms can seem out of place. Soft body, soft movements, soft edges, and then suddenly a hard mouth like a small dark parrot's beak hidden beneath the gathered limbs. It is used to bite and tear prey, and in many species works together with venomous saliva to subdue what has been found. And yet, even this sharpness fits the larger design. A creature may be yielding almost everywhere and still keep one precise instrument at its center. Gentleness and severity are not opposites in biology. They are often partners. Some deep octopuses brood their eggs for astonishing lengths of time. A mother may attach eggs beneath a rock ledge or another stable surface and remain with them for months, sometimes far longer, cleaning them, guarding them, and aerating them with faint movements of water. In colder, deep environments, development can be very slow, and one famous deep-sea octopus was observed brooding for more than 4 years, the longest known egg-brooding period of any animal. The mother often feeds little or not at all during this time. She waits. That waiting is difficult to hear without falling silent. In the deep sea, cold slows almost everything. Cells divide more slowly. Gestation lengthens. time itself seems to loosen. The brooding octopus becomes a figure of extreme patience, not as an idea, but as metabolism, as daily reality lived beneath rock in the dark. A life can be organized around guarding what has not yet hatched. Care can last for years. What makes this even more moving is how little motion it may involve. No nest built high and visible, no calls, no flock. Just a soft body pressed near a cluster of eggs in cold water, remaining there through seasonless dark, while tiny hearts and nervous systems take shape inside their capsules. It is one of the ocean's quietest forms of devotion. The trench margins hold not only pressure and hunger, but also long care. And then there is the question of color in darkness. Why keep a system of rapid skin change in a place where sunlight never reaches? Part of the answer is inheritance. Deep animals often carry structures shaped by ancestors from shallower worlds. Part is that dim environments are not the same as absent perception, because bioluminescence, faint glows, silhouettes, and the visual systems of other animals still matter. And part is that skin texture and contrast can help with camouflage even where color itself fades into near meaninglessness. Evolution rarely starts over from nothing. It modifies. This matters because it reminds us that deep animals are histories as well as bodies. A deep octopus is not only a creature of the moment it inhabits. It carries older solutions, altered and repurposed, traces of other waters and other selective pressures that have been brought downward and made useful again. Life does not erase its past each time it enters a new environment. It edits. It keeps what can still serve. The eyes of deep octopuses remain large and capable, but in this world touch often leads. That reversal is quietly profound. Humans usually trust sight first and let touch confirm what the eyes already decided. The octopus can do nearly the opposite, especially on a dark bottom where vision offers only fragments. The animal learns by brushing, tasting, pressing, and enclosing. It knows the world as resistance, texture, and chemistry before it knows it as image. That is another way for a mind to be in the world. Imagine the seafloor for a moment as the octopus meets it, not as a picture, but as an arrangement of pressures and surfaces. Fine sediment giving way beneath the suckers, a stone colder than the mud beside it, the rough lip of a shell, a faint movement deep inside a crevice. The world arrives in pieces, but the animal can gather the pieces quickly into action. It is a kind of reading done by the skin. That may be the deepest wonder octopuses bring to this landscape. In one of Earth's least familiar places, there is an animal moving with what feels like private thought. Not human thought, not language, not planning in the way we plan, not reflection as we know it. But there is attention, memory, experimentation, and a sensitivity that makes the surroundings seem less empty. The deep becomes not just inhabited, but noticed from within. And that changes the emotional shape of the trench. Without creatures like this, the dark might seem merely geological, a place of pressure, sediment, and depth. The octopus adds another register. It suggests that the bottom can also be interpreted, explored, and to some degree understood by a living being whose body is itself an instrument of inquiry. Beneath all that water, a soft animal is asking the seafloor what it contains. The seafloor answers in textures. There is something comforting in that. Even here, where the conditions are far from anything human life can endure, the world has not become too strange for intelligence to enter. It has only invited a different kind. The octopus does not master the deep. It listens to it with its arms, and in doing so, it offers a very quiet reassurance. Awareness does not need brightness or noise to exist. It can settle into darkness and still remain exquisitely awake. Perhaps that is why encounters with octopuses feel so memorable. People speak of being watched by them, but that is only part of it. More often, there is a sense of mutual pause, as if two very different ways of knowing have met for a moment and recognized, however dimly, that the other is there. In the deeper Pacific, where such meetings are rare and fleeting, that feeling becomes even more distant and delicate. A mind has passed nearby. Then it has gone back into stone-colored dark. Soon the body softens its outline again. An arm folds under. Another extends over a patch of sediment. The skin dulls to the tone of the bottom. What seemed for a moment like a distinct animal becomes harder to separate from the seafloor around it, as though thought itself had chosen not to announce where it ends. The hunt is over, or perhaps simply paused. The octopus settles, and in that settling, the whole animal becomes quieter than the idea of intelligence usually allows. We often picture minds as bright, active, restless things. This one can be patient, hidden, nearly still. It can know by touching. It can solve by waiting. It can inhabit the dark without trying to turn the dark into day. That is what this animal adds to the long descent of the trench, the sense that awareness too can be soft. Far above, the ocean still drifts through its layered nights. Down here, along the cold margins where trench and slope begin to lean toward one another, an octopus remains close to the ground, feeling its way across the dark one, careful contact at a time. The stones keep their shapes. The sediment settles again, and somewhere in the water above this patient hunter, other lives will pass not by touching the bottom, but by drifting through the midnight water. Not everything in the trench belongs to the ground below. Some lives remain suspended, as if the darkness itself had learned to drift. Above the sloping rock and soft sediment, the water is not empty at all. It is layered with bodies so delicate that they seem only half committed to being bodies. Clear bells and trailing threads, soft tubes, patient veils, and long living chains. In the trench region, Medusa, Xenophyophores, Xenophyophores, and other gelatinous animals pass through the midnight water, sometimes rising, sometimes sinking, sometimes simply yielding to currents too broad and slow to feel as motion at all. They are there. What makes this strange is how little substance they seem to require. A fish must carry muscle and bone. A crustacean carries armor. But many jelly drifters are mostly water, held in shape by gels, fibers, and simple layers of tissue so thin and transparent that the boundary between animal and ocean begins to soften. That is why gelatinous life is one of the deep sea's quietest solutions. If the surrounding world is already dense, cold, and supportive, then an animal does not always need to build itself heavily against gravity. It can become almost weightless instead, a living arrangement of water within water, moving with low cost through a place where food is scarce and every saved bit of energy matters. It is an economy of softness. A medusa, in the broadest sense, is the familiar jellyfish form. A bell above, mouth and arms below, tissues pulsing in patient rhythm. The bell contracts. Water is pushed backward. The body glides forward, then settles into stillness before the next pulse arrives. It is simple, yet simple is not the same as primitive. The bell's shape, the elasticity of its tissues, and the timing of each contraction all solve the problem of movement in a way that wastes very little. Some jellyfish use what researchers call passive energy recapture, gaining extra forward motion as the bell relaxes and water flows around it, which means one pulse can carry them farther than force alone would suggest. In other words, they move partly by letting the water finish the gesture. That matters in deep water. Down here, efficiency is not a bonus layered onto life after the important parts are solved. It is one of the important parts. A body that can travel by brief effort followed by long glide has found a way to live where urgency would be too expensive. Transparency is another answer. Many gelatinous animals in the deep are nearly invisible because their tissues bend and transmit light in ways that reveal very little outline. In the sunlit sea, that can make a drifting animal harder for predators to see from below or beside. In the midnight zone near trench waters, where sunlight has long since vanished, transparency still matters because bioluminescent flashes from other animals can briefly turn the water into a theater of outlines. So the body becomes almost absent, not gone, but difficult to hold in sight. A shrimp or fish may catch only a rim, a faint edge, a suggestion of shape before the jelly has already passed or the darkness has taken it back. There is something profound in that design, because it suggests that survival can come not only from strength or speed, but from reducing the self almost to a whisper. Xenophyophores carry this even further. They look at times like single creatures, long and coordinated. But each Xenophyore is a colony of specialized bodies called zooids, all genetically identical, all attached, all unable to live independently once the colony forms. One part swims, another feeds, another reproduces, another may sting or protect. Together they make what the eye wants to call one animal. And yet it is not one in the usual sense. It is a community arranged so perfectly that individuality has been traded for function, each body part animal giving up a solitary life to become an organ-like member of something larger. Even here, in dark water above the deepest place on Earth, life keeps returning to the same ancient possibility. Many can become one without ever fully ceasing to be many. Some Xenophyophores are small and easy to miss. Others are among the longest animals on the planet, extending in fragile chains for many meters, with tentacles that drift far from the central stem like fine fishing lines set in black water. These tentacles can carry batteries of stinging cells, each microscopic capsule primed to fire when touched. A passing copepod or small fish meets not a chase, but a field. That hunting method changes the meaning of motion. Predators on land often move toward prey. Here, the predator may simply remain arranged correctly in moving water, its body extended like a thought held very still. The trench region, then, is not only a place where animals walk the bottom or burrow into mud. It is also a suspended hunting ground, and some of its hunters are hardly more solid than the current itself. Xenophores, often called comb jellies, belong to another lineage entirely. They are not true jellyfish, though from a distance they can seem related. Instead of pulsing bells, many move with rows of tiny fused cilia, called combs, which beat in sequence and scatter light into shifting bands of color when illumination exists to catch them. In darkness, their movement is quieter still, almost beyond the category of swimming. The comb rows are small. The effect is not. Millions of tiny cilia working together can carry a transparent body through open water with remarkable delicacy, steering without suddenness, advancing without turbulence, as though the animal had found a way to be moved by intention more than force. That is another deep sea lesson in miniature. Power is not always loud. Many deep gelatinous animals also produce light. Not all do, and those that do use it in different ways. But bioluminescence appears again and again in the water column above trench habitats. A medusa may glow along the rim of its bell. A siphonophore may flash in sections. A ctenophore may emit brief pulses when disturbed. The dark receives these signals softly. What makes bioluminescence especially strange in gelatinous animals is how little body there seems to be for the light to live in. A pulse of blue or green appears in tissue that is otherwise nearly invisible, and for a moment the creature becomes more like an event than an object. Then the light fades. The body returns to obscurity. Presence becomes absence again. That has uses. Light can startle a predator, lure prey, draw attention to an attacker, or help members of a colony remain coordinated. Yet beneath all those functions lies a deeper feeling. In water, this dark, even a small biological glow, means that life has not merely adapted to obscurity. It has learned to answer it. Some medusae descend and rise over the course of a day, part of the great vertical migrations that carry biomass through the ocean's layers. Others remain deep. Some gelatinous predators hover above the trench slopes because food arrives there not only from below, but from the traffic of the water column itself. Small crustaceans, larval animals, drifting worms, fish at certain stages of life, and the remains of those that dive far above. The trench is a seafloor, yes, but it is also the lower wall of a vast vertical passage. That widens the place in the mind. It is easy to imagine the Mariana Trench as a crack in the earth, important because of its bottom. But above that bottom stands a great dark volume, inhabited at every level by lives that do not settle, do not crawl, and do not belong to the ground in any ordinary way. Depth is not only downward, it is inhabited upward too. A jelly drifter's body often lacks the hard distinction between front and back that more familiar animals use to organize movement. Some have radial symmetry, with structures arranged around a center. Some trail long feeding parts beneath them, while the bell remains above. Some rotate gently, some invert. Their geometry belongs less to the path of a running body and more to the conditions of surrounding water. In other words, these are not animals shaped by flaws. They are shaped by suspension. Their forms make sense in a world where up and down matter, but where contact with anything solid may be rare, and where the next meal arrives from a direction no land creature could easily predict. They remind us that the ocean is not only a landscape, it is also a volume, and volumes ask different questions of life. One of the most delicate facts about many jellyfish is that they can be badly damaged by nets, pumps, or rough handling, which means much of what scientists know about deep gelatinous animals has depended on gentler technologies than were once available. Remotely operated vehicles with quiet cameras have changed the picture. Where older sampling often returned fragments, the modern eye sometimes sees the whole animal alive, pulsing, feeding, glowing, or simply passing. That is more than a technical improvement. It is a moral adjustment in the way humans learn. Some creatures can only be known if we stop tearing the world apart to count it. With gelatinous life especially, knowledge becomes more patient when the subject itself is patient, and seeing clearly begins to depend on touching less. Imagine a submersible light held low in the water above a trench slope. The sea floor is still somewhere beneath, but not near enough to command the scene. Out ahead, a medusa appears as a pale dome with long, fine tentacles trailing downward like loose silk, each thread almost too thin for vision, each one extended into cold black water where small animals move unseen until they do not move anymore. The bell contracts once. The dome gathers itself. Then it opens again, and the medusa glides with a dignity so quiet it feels less like an action than a continuation. Nearby, a Xenophyophore hangs nearly vertical, a living string of translucent modules, some pulsing faintly, some motionless, its feeding filaments spread into the current with such patience that it seems to have mistaken waiting for a permanent form. Nothing rushes. A small crustacean, bright only for an instant in the submersible beam, brushes a tentacle. The response is microscopic and immediate. Stinging cells discharge. The prey jerks, then stills, and the long thread begins a slow delivery upward towards structures prepared to digest what drift has provided. It is a hunt, but one conducted almost without pursuit. And a little farther off, where the light weakens into grainy dark, a comb jelly crosses the field. Its body is clear as poured glass. Along its sides, comb rows ripple in sequence and brief colors gather there. Not because the animal makes rainbow light, but because motion and structure break the beam into spectral bands before the darkness closes over them again. It passes like a thought. Scenes like this matter because they correct the imagination. The deep ocean is often pictured as all pressure and stone, all compression and weight. But above the trench, there are animals whose lives depend on buoyancy, delicacy, and the ability to remain almost unsupported. The same world that can crush unadapted flesh also cradles these transparent drifters with extraordinary gentleness. Pressure and tenderness are not opposites here. That contradiction reaches into their feeding too. Some gelatinous predators take prey with venom. Some trap it in sticky mucus. Some Xenophyophores use specialized adhesive cells called colloblasts, which ensnare rather than sting. The methods differ, but the pattern is familiar. A body that seems defenseless can be highly effective, and an animal that looks passive may be exquisitely prepared for contact. Softness does not mean surrender. Reproduction in jelly drifters can be equally strange. Many true jellyfish alternate between different body forms over the course of a life cycle, with a tiny bottom-attached polyp stage producing medusae that later drift free. Not every deep species follows the same sequence, and much remains uncertain in the Hadal-adjacent water column. Still, the larger truth remains. Even these floating bodies are often part of a life more complicated than their stillness suggests. What makes this important is the way it unsettles our habits of judgment. We tend to mistake transparency for simplicity, drifting for helplessness, and softness for lack of design. Yet gelatinous animals are not unfinished. They are not failed versions of sturdier creatures. They are complete answers to their own conditions, and those conditions include darkness, scarcity, and the long vertical distances that structure ocean life above the trench. They also connect realms. A siphonophore drifting hundreds or thousands of meters above a trench wall is not a resident of the bottom in the way a sea cucumber is. Yet, its life intersects with trench ecology because bodies, wastes, eggs, larvae, and remains move between layers. Predation in the water column alters what reaches the seafloor. Death above becomes food below. The drifting and the settled are part of one exchange. That is why the trench cannot be understood only as a place you arrive at by descending. It is a depth beneath other depths, receiving influence from all the water above it, touched by migrations, falls, currents, and encounters that may never reach the ground in living form. The jellies make this visible. They turn the unseen column overhead into habitat, and habitat into connection. There is another kind of wonder here too. Many gelatinous animals seem almost too delicate to persist, and yet gelatinous lineages are ancient. They have endured planetary changes, extinctions, and rearrangements of ocean chemistry across spans of time that humble more solid forms. A body can be soft and still belong to a very long story. In fact, softness may be one reason such stories continue. Yet they never appear ancient in the way a shell or bone can. They leave little behind. They vanish into water, are eaten, torn, dissolved, or simply lost from view. Their history is carried more in continuity than in monument. This too means something. Not all durability announces itself through hardness. Some endurance is made of constant remaking. Above the Mariana Trench, then, there are lives that behave almost like weather, and yet remain fully animal. They pulse, extend, glow, feed, release offspring, and disappear back into the dark with no sound and almost no trace. To meet them is to realize that existence does not always need edges to be real. Sometimes it is enough to be a brief coherence in a moving world. That may be the gift they add to this long descent. We have spent time with creatures of mud, stone, pressure, and patient chemistry. The jelly drifters widen that picture without breaking its calm. They show that even near the deepest place, life is not only bent toward the ground. Some of it remains lifted, translucent, and light-bearing, as though the ocean refused to let depth become heaviness alone. And there is comfort in that. The deepest sea could have been imagined as only burden, only weight pressing downward forever. But the water keeps making room for suspension. It keeps making bodies that can drift rather than brace, glow rather than reflect, and take shape without ever fully separating themselves from the medium that holds them. They are almost nothing. They are entirely alive. Soon, another soft-bodied animal will appear from this same dark, not as a bell or a chain, but as a small drifting figure with fins like quiet wings, moving through pressure with a kind of underwater grace that seems for a moment almost like flying. The water is colder here, and sometimes the strangest answer to deep pressure is not toughness at all, but elegance. In the deep Pacific, far beneath the reach of weather, there is an octopus that seems less like a creature pushing through water than a thought gliding through it. People call it the dumbo octopus because of the fins on either side of its head, though in the dark where it lives, the name feels almost too bright. It is softer than the name. Those fins are real, of course. They rise from the mantle like a pair of quiet wings, and with them, the animal rows itself through the water in slow, measured beats. Other octopuses often rely on brief jets of water for speed, but these deep forms spend much of their time hovering, steering, and adjusting with fin strokes so gentle they almost seem ceremonial. That is why seeing one can feel oddly peaceful, even on a screen. In a place we associate with force, the body has chosen grace. What makes this more striking is that the dumbo octopus belongs to a group often called cirrate octopuses, the finned deep-sea octopuses. Along the arms they carry delicate filaments called cirri, and between the arms they have a broad web that can spread like a soft umbrella. The whole design changes the meaning of movement, because the animal is not built mainly to lunge or wrestle, but to hover, cup, drift and gather. It turns the octopus into something almost aerial. Its body is also different in another important way. Unlike many shallow water octopuses, cirrates do not have an ink sac. In the open dark of the deep sea, there may be little use in releasing a cloud meant to confuse a hunter when there is no reef to hide in, no sunlit background to vanish against, and often no quick escape worth the effort. So the body lets that old strategy go. Evolution can be very patient about setting things down. That loss means something larger than a missing organ. It reminds us that survival is not only a matter of adding tools. Sometimes it is refinement. Sometimes an animal becomes more suited to its world by carrying less of the past with it, as though life is always quietly editing itself to fit the room it now inhabits. The dumbo octopus is not a single species, but a group within the genus Grimpoteuthis, with relatives found in deep waters across the world. Some live thousands of meters down, among the deepest octopuses known, drifting above seafloor plains and trench slopes where the water is near freezing and the pressure is difficult to imagine. Their bodies are gelatinous, their tissues supple, their structure less rigid than many listeners might expect from an octopus. That is why they can live where stiffer designs might struggle. The deep often rewards what can yield. They are not large in the way deep-sea legends sometimes suggest. Many are modest animals, often no bigger than a dinner plate across when the arms and web are fully spread, though size varies by species. Seen in the beam of a submersible, they can look almost toy-like at first, almost delicate beyond credibility. And then the mind adjusts and understands that delicacy is not fragility here. It is a solution. It is another way of being durable. Color is hard to speak of at these depths because color is partly a conversation with light. Dumbo octopuses have been observed in pale shades, reddish tones, brown, pink and milky white, but down where they live, those differences flatten into the language of dimness. What remains visible is contour, motion, and the slow opening and closing of the web. In other words, identity here is less about brightness than about shape in the dark. The animal is known by how it moves, and how it moves is the heart of it. A dumbo octopus can flap its fins in alternating strokes or together, while the arms trail and the web subtly changes form beneath. It can also use gentle jets when needed, but fin swimming appears to be its signature, economical and controlled in water where rushing would be wasteful. The result is an animal that does not seem to push the sea aside so much as negotiate with it. It travels by agreement. That style of motion changes what an octopus can be. The familiar image is of intelligence expressed through grasping, unscrewing, prying, or sudden escape. Here the mind is present in a body adapted for suspended calm, where the work is not to dominate a crowded shore, but to remain responsive in a vast, dim volume of water with very little shelter and very few second chances. The intelligence looks quieter. It has not vanished. It has settled into another form. The arms themselves carry one more surprise. Suckers are present, but in cirrate octopuses they are often arranged in a single row, and the cirri between them may help disturb small prey or sense the water near the seafloor. The web joining the arms allows the octopus to envelop what it finds, creating a sudden pocket around a drifting crustacean or worm. That is why feeding can look almost tender from a distance. Predation here is often a soft closing. Unlike many shallower octopuses that tear prey with a stronger, more forceful style, dumbo octopuses are known to swallow small prey whole. Their diet includes copepods, amphipods, isopods, small worms, and other invertebrates gathered from just above the bottom or from the seafloor itself. They drift, detect, descend, and collect. The meal disappears into the center of that webbed body with very little visible struggle. Hunger, even here, can be quiet. What makes this meaningful is not only the delicacy of the act, but the kind of world it suggests. We often imagine the deep as a place of giant mouths and violent ambush, and of course those lives exist too. Yet this animal shows another possibility. The deepest waters also sustain forms of feeding so restrained that they resemble careful gathering more than attack. Imagine a dim plain of sediment beneath black water. A small dumbo octopus hovers a little above the bottom, its fins moving with patient regularity, each stroke barely altering the stillness around it. One arm curls inward, then another. The web loosens and gathers again as the animal senses some faint sign below. Perhaps the movement of a tiny crustacean among the grains. Perhaps a chemical trace. Perhaps only a change in texture carried upward through the water. Then it dips. There is no rush. The body folds downward like soft fabric settling in slow motion, and the arms spread around a point too small for a human eye to follow. For a moment, the octopus resembles a suspended bell or a hand cupped around a secret. Then the web draws in. Whatever was there is lifted from the seafloor and taken inward, and the animal rises again with the same composed rhythm, as if the deep itself had briefly gathered into a shape and then let go. A remotely operated vehicle might catch this and drift near, lights held low, thrusters carefully managed so as not to disturb the scene. Against that artificial brightness, the dumbo octopus can seem almost unreal because it is so complete a contradiction of what many people expect from life under crushing pressure. There is no armor, no menace, no hardness announcing itself. Only a soft-bodied hunter moving with a kind of airborne poise. It feels impossible until it does not. That change in perception is part of the wonder. The dumbo octopus asks the mind to let go of an old equation, the one that assumes extreme environments must produce extreme-looking force. Sometimes they produce refinement instead. Sometimes the answer to a difficult world is not aggression, but exquisite control. There is another part of its life that deepens this feeling of patience. Female dumbo octopuses do not seem to reproduce in a fixed season. Instead, they can carry eggs at different stages of development at the same time, which suggests a reproductive strategy shaped for a world without clear annual signals like spring blooms or warm shallows. In the deep, the calendar is less obvious. Opportunity may arrive irregularly, and the body remains ready. That flexibility matters. In habitats where food can be sparse and conditions change slowly, waiting for one narrow breeding window might be too rigid a plan. A female able to mature eggs continuously, and perhaps lay them when circumstances allow, is living on deep time rather than surface time. The rhythm is less synchronized, more patient, more open to uncertainty. Life here does not hurry to meet a season. It keeps watch instead. The eggs themselves are relatively large. They are often attached singly to hard surfaces on the seafloor, such as sponges, corals, or other structures that rise a little from the sediment. Large eggs generally mean larger, more developed young at hatching, and that makes sense in a world where tiny, helpless beginnings may be too costly. The young emerge not as drifting fantasies of potential, but as more complete small octopuses. The deep does not always favor prolonged vulnerability, and yet there is tenderness even in that. To invest heavily in fewer, larger eggs is a quiet kind of confidence that each beginning should be given more of what it needs from the start. It is not abundance in the surface sense. It is care redistributed. The animal meets a difficult world by preparing its young to arrive more finished. Scientists who study these octopuses through sparse sightings and rare collected specimens often have to build understanding from fragments. A body seen hovering above mud, an egg attached to a deep-sea sponge, a stomach containing small benthic prey, a fin stroke repeated in the light of a submersible. The life is real, but much of it remains hidden by distance and darkness. That is why the dumbo octopus feels both familiar and distant at once. We recognize the octopus shape, yet the life around it is largely withheld. There is humility in that partial knowledge. We do not know every route it takes above a trench slope, every resting posture, or every choice it makes between drifting water and the seafloor below. We know enough to feel the outline of its existence, and sometimes that outline is more moving than certainty. A few glimpses are enough to understand the style of the animal. It lives gently in a place that does not seem as though gentleness should be possible. Its internal design carries the same message. Like other deep-sea animals, it must keep delicate chemistry working under immense pressure. But the result is not visible as a dramatic shield or weapon. It appears instead as composure. Molecules hold their shapes, membranes keep functioning, tissues remain responsive, and from all that hidden labor comes a visible stillness that looks effortless. The grace is supported by work we cannot see. That may be one of the most beautiful things about deep life. The quiet surface of an animal often rests upon countless invisible adjustments, each one small, each one necessary, each one repeated without rest in every living cell. The dumbo octopus seems serene, but serenity in biology is rarely simple. It is usually earned in secret. There are moments when these octopuses spread their webs so fully that they resemble drifting cloth or a small parachute of muscle and skin. At other times, they draw the arms together and become more compact, a hovering knot with fins. This ability to change profile matters in hunting and maneuvering, but it also makes the animal hard to hold in one mental category. It is not quite fish-like, not quite jelly-like, not quite what the shoreline prepared us to expect. It remains octopus, but translated into another element of possibility. Yet the translation is not total. Something recognizable persists. The searching arms, the centered mouth, the alertness, the sense that the animal is making decisions rather than merely being carried. This continuity matters. It means that even in one of Earth's most distant habitats, life can alter itself deeply without becoming alien to its own ancestry. The strange and the familiar stay braided together. Seen above a trench or nearby abyssal plain, the dumbo octopus often occupies a narrow layer of relationship between bottom and water. It is not simply a seafloor crawler, nor only a midwater drifter. It hovers in that in-between zone, close enough to descend for food, high enough to remain suspended, a living answer to two environments at once. That middle position feels important. The animal belongs to edges. And edges are often where interesting designs appear. Too far into the open water, and one set of demands dominates. Pressed entirely to the sediment, and another set takes over. The dumbo octopus lives in negotiation between them, and its body reflects that compromise with unusual beauty. Fins for hovering, arms for gathering, web for enclosing, softness for pressure, patience for scarcity. There is also something quietly disarming about the face humans think they see in it. The large eyes, the rounded mantle, the fins like ears, all of it encourages a response that can feel almost protective. But the animal does not exist to be charming to us. It is a predator, a deep one, shaped by need and by time. The gentleness we perceive is real in movement, but it should not be mistaken for innocence. It is competence without display. That distinction matters because it broadens our idea of power. Not all effectiveness arrives as speed, noise, or threat. The dumbo octopus is effective because it wastes little, notices well, and moves with a precision that suits its world. There is power in economy. There is power in not doing more than the moment requires. In the Mariana Trench and its neighboring Hadal landscapes, this kind of animal adds an important note to the whole larger chorus of life we have been following. The trench is often imagined as the kingdom of endurance, and that is true. But endurance here is not expressed in one style. We have met softness, chemistry, stillness, hovering, and slow recycling. The dumbo octopus gathers many of those themes into a single body and lets them drift together. It shows that elegance is not a luxury added after survival has been solved. In some worlds, elegance is survival. The fins are not decoration. The web is not excess. The slow hovering is not delay. Each of these gentle features is part of a complete answer to cold, darkness, pressure, and sparse food. Beauty here is practical. Practicality becomes beautiful. And perhaps that is why this animal lingers in the mind. A dumbo octopus seems almost tenderly airborne in a place where air has never been, moving above the seafloor as though gravity has loosened its hold. It makes the deep ocean feel less like a crushing downward force and more like a vast, dark space through which some lives have learned to glide. The trench does not only press, it also holds. That is a different kind of wonder. Not that life can survive the deepest sea, though that remains true. More that life can survive there with poise, with softness, with motions so measured they seem nearly musical, though no sound carries from them that we can hear. The animal does not conquer the dark, it inhabits it well. And in that quiet competence, the dumbo octopus offers one of the trench's gentlest revelations. The bottom of the world is not populated only by the hardened and the grim. It also makes room for beings that move like folded silk through black water, gathering what they need and asking nothing of the eye except patience. The deep is vast enough for delicacy. Soon enough, even this soft figure fades back into the water beyond the lights. The fins keep their slow beat for a few moments more. The web narrows. The shape becomes less animal than memory, then less memory than darkness. And somewhere farther off, other small lights are waiting in bodies that make their own dawn. The water is colder here. Before knowledge dissolves fully into experience, it helps to remember that even this deepest darkness is not entirely without light. Not sunlight, of course. That world has long since thinned away above the trench, leaving behind only pressure, black water, and the slow descent of things that drift. Yet bodies still glow here, or pass close enough to this depth that their own small lanterns enter the Hadal dark and carry on. Some of these animals do not live on the trench floor itself. They belong to the deep pelagic, the vast water above and beside the slopes, where creatures spend their lives suspended rather than settled. But the Mariana Trench is not only a groove in the seafloor, it is also a column of water, and that column is inhabited. In other words, the trench has visitors. They come as fishes, squid, shrimps, Xenophyophores, and drifting jellies, many equipped with organs that produce light through chemistry so efficient it gives off almost no wasted heat. A molecule called luciferin reacts with oxygen, often guided by an enzyme called luciferase, and a bead of blue-green light appears in the dark because those wavelengths travel well through seawater and can be seen from a distance where red and orange would simply vanish. The result is not fire, not warmth, but cold radiance, a living answer to night. What makes this so strange is how ordinary it becomes below. In the upper world, making light would seem theatrical, like a special ability. In the deep ocean, it is often practical, even routine, part of the basic grammar of survival in a place where sight has not disappeared so much as changed its terms. Light here is not decoration. It is language, lure, disguise, boundary, warning, invitation, and sometimes simply the brief proof that another life is near. One of the most familiar lantern bearers is the lanternfish. They are small, usually only a few centimeters long, with rows of photophores along their bodies arranged in species-specific patterns, like tiny windows lit from within. Many spend daylight in deeper water and rise at night toward richer feeding layers, then sink again by morning, part of the great daily migration that moves immense living mass up and down through the ocean. A trench wall can lie beside this traffic like a dark cliff beside a road. And so even the deepest places are brushed by travelers. That migration matters. Lanternfish are among the most abundant vertebrates on Earth, and their glowing organs may help them find their own kind, confuse predators, or blend into faint downwelling light from above. That last trick is called counter-illumination. By shining softly from the belly, an animal can erase its silhouette when something below looks upward, making a body seem less like an object and more like water. There is a quiet elegance in that. Camouflage usually makes us think of becoming dark, hidden against shadow or stone. Yet in mid-water, the danger may come from beneath, and the safest body is one that makes just enough light to disappear. It is a curious reversal. To stay unseen, life sometimes has to glow. Hatchetfish use this logic too. Their bodies are narrow from the front, but deep from the side, like polished metal tools drifting through the water, and their undersides carry photophores aimed downward. Their eyes are often large and tilted, adapted to catch the faintest signs above. They live in a world where a dim shape overhead might mean food, or a predator, or both. That is why precision matters. The light of a hatchetfish is not thrown out carelessly. It must match the brightness of the water above with delicate accuracy, adjusted to depth and hour, and the thin remains of daylight filtering from far overhead. This means the animal is not merely producing light. It is measuring absence, responding to a darkness that is not uniform, but graded, subtle, and full of consequence. Even black water has texture. Then there are dragonfish, long and dark and patient, with teeth that seem almost too large for the rest of the face. Some species carry a barbel beneath the chin tipped with a glowing lure, while others produce red light. A rarity in the deep sea because most animals there cannot detect it well. In a blue world, red becomes a private wavelength. The dragonfish can illuminate prey without fully announcing itself. It is an unusual kind of secrecy. Most deep-sea light is communal in the sense that many eyes can see it. Red changes that. It creates a narrow field of visibility, almost a personal lantern in a place where seeing and being seen are usually the same event. What makes this meaningful is not only the chemistry, but the strategy beneath it. Evolution does not always answer darkness by making brighter signals. Sometimes it invents privacy. Certain shrimps choose another method. When threatened, some deep pelagic species release a cloud of bioluminescent chemicals into the water, a glowing smokescreen that briefly hangs and disperses. For a moment, the dark holds a floating ghost of light while the animal slips away. It is defense by confusion, a decoy made of chemistry and timing. A soft explosion, then nothing. That kind of light is brief, and many deep-sea signals are brief by design. A flash can be enough to startle, to distract, to mark a body, and then erase it again. Continuous glowing would cost more and reveal too much. Here, as in so many Hadal and abyssal lives, economy matters. Even beauty is often frugal. Some squid carry light-producing organs of their own. Others host luminous bacteria inside specialized tissues, allowing symbiotic microbes to provide the glow. The squid offers shelter and nutrients. The bacteria offer radiance. Together, they make a tool neither could create in quite the same way alone. Life keeps making partnerships. There is something gentle in the thought that even here, far beneath weather and dawn, one creature may depend on a hidden colony inside its body to manage how it appears in the dark. The self is not always singular. In the deep ocean, as on land, survival can be collaborative down to the level of light itself. Among fishes, the anglerfish remains one of the clearest examples of light turned into a scene. In some deep-sea species, a modified dorsal spine extends before the mouth, ending in a luminous lure called an esker. The fish waits nearly motionless. The light trembles, and something small draws near. Then the mouth opens. It is easy to tell this as a story of menace, but that would miss the stillness of it. The anglerfish is not racing through the water. It is conserving energy in a place where meals may be distant and expensive to pursue. The lure is a patient substitute for chase. In a world where movement costs, stillness can become an active hunting method. Imagine the water beside a trench wall, cold and thick, with almost nothing visible at all. A small crustacean drifts through the black, sensing little beyond current and faint chemical traces, and then ahead appears a point of light no larger than a pin, wavering with the softness of something vulnerable or edible. The crustacean approaches. The light holds. The mouth that had been part of the dark becomes suddenly not dark, and then the water closes again. Afterward, there is only blackness. This is the behavior scene that bioluminescence makes possible. Not pursuit, but invitation. The prey is not overtaken. It is persuaded toward danger by a signal shaped to seem harmless, even promising. That changes the emotional quality of the hunt. It becomes less like force and more like misreading, a small mistake in the interpretation of light. And the deep is full of such interpretations. Xenophyophores add another kind of lantern to the water. These long colonial drifters are not one animal in the ordinary sense, but many specialized bodies joined into a single functioning whole. Some species carry chains of glowing structures that can pulse or sparkle along the length of the colony. In darkness, the effect can resemble a floating constellation stretched into a line, faint and drifting. The light belongs to a collective. That matters because Xenophyophores remind us that even illumination does not always come from an individual self. A living string of connected units can send a signal through the water that appears singular from a distance, though it is made by cooperation. The ocean often blurs boundaries we assume are fixed, one and many, body and colony, animal and environment. Bioluminescence makes that blurring visible for a moment, then takes it away. Comb jellies offer still another version. Their famous rainbow shimmer is not bioluminescence, but the bending of light over rows of beating cilia. Yet many species also produce actual light when disturbed, blue flashes moving across gelatinous bodies that are otherwise almost absent from view. A comb jelly can seem to appear only at the instant it is touched, as if contact itself called it briefly into existence. That feels important. In a sunlit world, things are visible first and touched second. In the deep, visibility may arrive only because something has happened. Light becomes event rather than condition. It marks encounter. It says, very quietly, that two bodies have met in a place where most things pass one another unknown. Not all bioluminescence is meant for communication between members of the same species. Some of it may function as a burglar alarm, a flash that attracts a larger predator to attack the smaller predator doing the immediate threatening. Some may be aposematic, warning that a body is distasteful or difficult to handle. Some may simply startle. Functions overlap. The same organ can mean different things in different moments. That ambiguity is part of the design. We often want one clean explanation for a trait, one purpose attached to one structure. Deep sea light resists that neatness. A glow can conceal and reveal. It can gather mates and summon danger. It can save one animal by drawing attention to another. In darkness, meaning remains fluid. And yet the chemistry itself is precise. Bioluminescent organs are often arranged with remarkable care. Rows under the belly, dots near the eye, lures at the chin, patches along the flank, tiny lamps near the tail. Some species can shutter them. Others can change intensity. A few use filters or reflective tissues to direct the beam. These are not accidental leaks of brightness. They are built instruments. What makes this moving is the amount of structure devoted to something so fleeting. Tissue, pigment, nerves, reflective layers, chemistry, timing, all brought together to produce a blue point that may last seconds. The deep sea is often described through pressure and darkness, which are both real. But pressure and darkness have also shaped delicacy. They have selected for signals that are quiet, exact, and easily lost. A small star, then gone. Near trench regions, these visitors do not turn the water bright. That would be the wrong image. There is no grand illumination reaching the seafloor like moonlight in a room. Instead, there are occasional pulses, threads, beads and tremors of radiance moving through the water column above the slopes and over the plain, each one local and brief, each one belonging to a body occupied with its own life. This is enough to change the darkness. A place can remain overwhelmingly black and still not be empty of light. That is the deeper wonder here. The trench does not need the sun in order for brightness to exist within it. Life has carried brightness down in its own tissues, or made alliances with bacteria, or evolved lures and lanterns and signals until the dark itself became inhabited by points of intention. In other words, the ocean did not surrender night to emptiness. That may be why bioluminescence feels so ancient in the mind, even when the specific chemistry differs across groups. It answers something old. To make a visible sign inside darkness is not only useful, it is almost philosophical. A body declares itself without becoming loud. It says, "I am here, but only briefly. I am here, and that is enough." The trench receives even this. Above its deepest floor, where snailfish settle and amphipods gather, and the sediment holds patient traces of everything that falls. There is also passing light from animals that belong more to open water than to ground. Their presence reminds us that no part of the ocean is sealed from all others. Vertical distance is immense, yes, but connection persists in movement, migration, and drift. So the Mariana world is not only benthic, it is layered. A slope, a plain, a water column, a route. A place of residence and visitors. A dark architecture through which signals travel, meals descend, hunters rise, and soft blue lights appear and vanish without leaving any mark except the momentary knowledge that another life was there. Sometimes, that is all the evidence the deep offers. A blink, then quiet, and maybe that is enough evidence. At the bottom of the planet's great ocean, where pressure builds beyond ordinary human feeling and the sun has no direct authority, living bodies still produce their own small stars, not to astonish us, not for display. They do it because darkness created problems, and life, as it so often does, answered with form, chemistry, patience, and a little radiance. The answer is modest. That is part of its beauty. Not a flood of light, a bead of it. Not permanence, a signal. Not conquest of the dark, but conversation with it. These visitors do not banish night from the trench. They inhabit it more fully, proving that even here the world remains relational, responsive, and delicately alive. Soon, even this faint glowing will feel far away. What remains is the sense of a water column stretching upward through blackness, and within it occasional living lamps drifting, hunting, calling, blending, vanishing. Their light does not break the quiet. It belongs to the quiet. It is one more way the deep keeps speaking softly, even now, even here, beneath everything familiar. And after such small stars, it becomes possible to let the trench grow dim again, not emptier than before, but more inhabited, as if the dark itself has learned to breathe. The water is colder here. You do not measure that as a number. You know it as a steady touch over all of you at once. The dark does not press like a blow, because nothing here arrives suddenly, and your soft body receives the great weight of the sea the way a patient current receives the moon. It is simply there. You wake already suspended. There is no true dawn in this depth, only a gradual sense that stillness has become motion again, that the faint water around you has shifted, and that your body has returned to its long, quiet hovering above the seafloor. Your fins begin before thought does. They move. Each slow beat lifts and steadies you. Not far beneath, the bottom waits in its familiar way. Sediment lies spread in dark softness, shaped by no weather you would call weather, only by settling, by drifting, by the almost invisible arrival of particles from far above. The world below is never empty. It is receiving. You drift over that receiving ground. The water carries traces. A difference here, then another there. So faint they are less like signals than inclinations, small invitations to turn, lower, pause, continue. Your arms loosen beneath you. They are ready. Nothing in you is rigid. That is why the pressure outside does not find a hard edge to break. Your body yields where it must, holds where it can, and keeps its own quiet shape within this vast surrounding force, as if softness were not a weakness at all, but a kind of deep agreement with the sea. You do not resist. You remain. There are ways of moving that spend too much. You know another way. The fins carry you with a gentle, measured rhythm, and when they do, the water seems less like something crossed than something entered more fully, a dark room in which each motion must be worth making. You glide, you conserve. Below, the bottom begins to rise toward you. You lower yourself by degrees. No hurry enters the descent. The sea floor comes near enough for texture to return, not as a picture, but as a field of delicate differences waiting for contact, waiting for the first arm to arrive and learn what sight does not need to tell. You settle closer. One arm reaches, then another. The ground answers immediately through touch. Fine grains that slip, a patch more compacted than the rest, a shape built from gathered sediment, delicate and inhabited in its own still way. You know this world by meeting it. Contact becomes understanding. A brittle ridge gives slightly. A smoother place holds. Something branched and fragile stands from the seafloor with the quiet intricacy of a structure that took a very long time to become itself, and your arm passes over it carefully, reading contour, resistance, emptiness and shelter all at once. The bottom is full of hidden architecture. It waits without asking. You move among these forms slowly. There is no need for speed where so much can be missed by passing too fast. Your arms taste the shape of the ground, and your body follows what they find, turning with a kind of distributed patience, as if thought were not kept in one place, but drifted outward into every touching line of you. The sea floor opens arm by arm. You continue. Something small stirs ahead. Not alarm. Only movement in the sediment, a slight rearrangement, the presence of another life making its own careful way through the dark, turning grains, processing what has fallen, continuing the old work of the bottom. You hover above it for a moment, then drift on. The trench is never separate from the world above. You feel that, not as theory, but as arrival. Minute particles drift downward through distances so large they would seem impossible in another life. And yet here they are, settling into the sediment, gathering in traces, feeding bodies you may never see, and bodies you briefly touch, joining surface light to trench dark through a long and patient descent. The whole ocean is in this. It keeps falling. Something else passes in the water above you. Not near, only present. A soft body, almost no more substantial than the water around it, drifting through the same dark layer with a different kind of surrender, faint and nearly transparent, part of the vast vertical life that shares this midnight space without ever needing the ground. It glides on. You remain lower. A distant pulse appears, then vanishes. Another follows, small and self-made, a point of living light so modest it feels less like illumination than acknowledgement. One body announcing its presence briefly in the great dark, and then returning to invisibility. Nothing here tries to outshine the sea. It only answers it. You rise a little. The fins hold you in place. There is grace in how little needs to happen for your body to remain suspended. How a slow motion through cold water can become almost equivalent to stillness. Almost the same as resting without touching down. You are not heavy here. You are held. Pressure surrounds every surface of you, and yet inwardly there is no sense of crushing. Only function continuing quietly and exactly in tissues, fluids, and membranes that belong here so completely they do not experience this depth as an emergency, only as home, as the ordinary condition under which a body continues its ancient work of being alive. Nothing inside you protests. It simply goes on. That may be the strangest comfort of all. The place that would undo another creature is, for you, continuous and livable. The great force outside does not become gentler, but your life meets it without drama, molecule by molecule, gesture by gesture, until what seems impossible from elsewhere becomes here just another slow day in dark water. You drift through the impossible. It feels normal. A pale movement catches through your arms before your eyes make anything of it. Small bodies work the bottom. They gather where the world has delivered something worth gathering, each one intent in its own limited way, part of the quiet economy beneath you where very little is wasted, and almost everything becomes food for something else, eventually after enough patience. The trench uses what arrives. It always has. You lower again. Your arms spread into the sedimented dark beneath you. One touch becomes another, and then another, and the ground resolves into useful differences. Rough against smooth, settled against loose, living against merely lying there. The familiar calm of a world that does not reveal itself all at once, but allows itself to be known by degrees. You do not need distance. Nearness is enough. The body turns with hardly any decision. A curve through water, a soft correction from the fins, a gathered fold of arm, and then an opening again, all of it so measured that movement feels less like travel than adjustment, less like crossing space than remaining in right relation to it. You hover, you veer. Time does not divide itself sharply here. There is no morning in the human sense, no noon, no evening. Only intervals of motion and intervals of less motion. Periods of touching the bottom and periods of rising slightly above it. Moments when another life passes near, and longer moments when the trench seems composed only of water, sediment, and your own soft continuation within them. The day is a slow circle. You inhabit it. At one point, the water ahead grows faintly active. A current, slight but enough. It slips along your body and around your arms, carrying with it distant traces of elsewhere, and for a while you let it decide more than you do, allowing the flow to angle you across the slope while your fins make only the smallest replies. Even drifting can be deliberate. Even yielding can guide. Below, the seafloor changes once more. A smoother stretch opens. Then scattered forms return, low and intricate. Places where stillness has built something that is not stone and not quite ordinary life either. Structures assembled grain by grain until they become shelter for smaller beings and texture for larger wanderers like you. You pass over them gently. Nothing here needs disturbance. The water remains dark, yet dark is not blank. It has density, direction, 1,000 slight variations your body reads without needing brightness. And in that unlit vastness, you are never truly nowhere, because the sea is always contacting you, always informing you, always giving some answer to your presence. The dark is in conversation. Quietly, later you do less. The fins continue, but with wider intervals. Your arms gather nearer to you between touches. The bottom drifts by below in longer unbroken reaches, and the need to investigate every change loosens into a calmer kind of passing over, as if the day has thinned and the world is asking less of you now. You accept that. You slow. Another small light appears far off. It blooms once, then is gone. The darkness that follows seems softer for having held it, the way deep water can briefly keep the memory of a presence even after the body itself has moved on into distance. The sea closes gently. Nothing is lost in a hurry. You begin to descend toward rest, not all the way at once. First a lower hover, then a pause, then one arm touching down and lifting again, then the others testing the sediment where it lies undisturbed and cool, where the ground receives weight lightly because your body carries so little hardness into it. The seafloor is patient. It allows your arrival. You settle. The fins make smaller motions now, just enough to keep balance, just enough to ease the body into a position that feels sheltered, though nothing here resembles shelter in the shallow water sense. Only a rightness between softness below and softness within. You fold inward slightly. You become stiller. Around you, the trench continues its old work. Particles descend from unseen heights. Small scavengers move through slower routes. The elaborate forms on the bottom keep their quiet shapes. Somewhere above, gelatinous drifters pass like thoughts. Somewhere farther off, a living light appears and goes out. You do not follow any of it. For now, it is enough to remain. The pressure is immense and familiar. The water is cold and constant. Your body rests inside conditions that never pause, and yet rest is possible here, perhaps because nothing asks you to be other than what you are. Soft, patient, dark water maid. You rest. The fins slow again, then slower. The arms loosen fully into the ground beneath you, not searching now, not reading, only lying in the faint contour of the sediment as the body settles into the shape of its own pause. There is no effort in this. There is only less. The dark holds. The sea floor holds. The water above and around you goes on in its vast hidden way. But here, in this small place just above the trench floor, your day narrows into stillness so complete it almost ceases to feel like time at all. Nothing urgent remains. Nothing needs naming. You are safe in the deep, soft within pressure, quiet within vastness, suspended at the edge of the bottom world, then finally resting on it, as if the whole long day has been a gradual learning of the same ancient truth the trench keeps offering to its gentlest lives. Yielding can endure, stillness can hold. And now you do not move. Not really. Only the least response to water, only the faintest settling of arm against sediment, of body into balance, of living softness into the dark place that receives it without surprise. The day has gone very far away. Everything is still. And after all that depth, what remains is not strangeness, but companionship in the dark. The Mariana Trench can seem from far away like a place defined by absence. No sunlight, little warmth, long distances between moments of food, motion and encounter. Yet what settled there was not emptiness, but life that learned how to belong to pressure, darkness and time without argument. That may be the quietest wonder of all. Not that life reached so far down, that it became gentle there. Soft bodies, patient movements, thin exchanges with the world through touch, chemistry, drifting scent, and faint shifts in water. In a place that might sound severe to the human mind, many of its residents endure not by hardening against everything around them, but by yielding in the right ways, conserving what they can, and letting the deep shape them into forms that seem almost made of stillness. It is a different answer, and yet it is an answer that keeps appearing. Again and again, the trench asked the same old question: how can a living thing remain alive here? The responses were varied, but they carried a shared feeling, as if life at great depth had discovered that survival does not always look like force, and that persistence can be soft, slow, and nearly invisible while still being complete. There is something comforting in that. The bottom of the ocean is often imagined as hostile because it is so distant from ordinary human conditions. But distance is not the same as refusal. The trench does not welcome in the way a warm shore welcomes. Still, it is inhabited, and to be inhabited is to be known by living bodies, each one fitted to the dark in its own quiet way, each one making a home, not despite the depth, but within it. In other words, the deepest world is still a world. It has its scavengers, its drifters, its hunters, its shelter builders, its slow recyclers, its passing lights, its bodies tender enough to bend where something rigid would fail. Even at the edge of pressure and cold, life did not become less itself. It simply became more patient, more hidden, and more exact about what was necessary. That is a beautiful kind of precision. And now gently, you can let the thought of that grow dim. Let your jaw unclench if any small holding remains there. Let the tongue rest. Let your hands open into whatever surface receives them. If the fingers wish to curl, they can curl softly. If they wish to loosen, let them loosen, with no need to arrange them into any better shape. They do not need to do anything more tonight. Let the weight of your body be plain. You do not have to hold yourself up in any inward way. The bed, the chair, the blanket, the dark room, the quiet air around you can do that work now. What makes this moment gentle is not effort, but the end of effort, the simple permission to be carried by what is already beneath you. Your eyes are heavy. Let them be heavy. There is nowhere to be now except here. Nothing required, nothing left to solve before rest can begin. Like the deep water, this hour does not ask for performance. It asks for very little, only that you settle, and settling is enough. Perhaps that is one of the lasting meanings of the trench. In one of the most distant places on Earth, life continued without spectacle. It did not need brightness to become intricate. It did not need speed to become successful. It did not need noise to fill the dark with presence. Beneath all our usual measures of importance, another kind of living went on, ancient and quiet and whole. That thought can stay with you only as long as it wants. Then it can drift. You do not need to carry the whole ocean with you, only this feeling of it, a vast dark that was never empty, a hidden place still full of small continuations, bodies gliding, settling, waiting, feeding, shining faintly, enduring through softness and patience in the deepest water the planet keeps. Now even that can fade. Let your face be smooth. Let your shoulders drop the last little distance. Let your hands be warm and loose. Let your body feel heavy in the most peaceful way. The night does not need anything from you. The deep does not need to be understood all at once. It is enough that, for a little while, you kept company with a world beneath the world, and found there not fear but a slower kind of belonging. Everything can be still now. Good night.